the difference between Get-Right and Force and Device is they had the same amount of talent, but Device sort of had the structure in its life, is working really hard, and that made it work for him. And maybe if Force and Get-Right were born later, maybe they would have had the same career as Device. But that's how I see it, at least, because they're all of those three is obviously the best ones I worked with. They're all as talented as each other, but Device just had better work ethic.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Finally, I found what I was looking for. Now that my search is over, it's gonna be a tough choice. But fortunately, no need to choose. When you can just have them all. Buy and sell skins on BitSkins.com.
Your bet, your game.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, welcome to another episode of HLTV Confirmed. We're brought to you by a couple of lovely sponsors. They make things possible. They make things happen. They keep the lights on. They keep the hamster wheel running. They keep Lucas in his chair. They keep things warm around here because it's fucking cold in winter in Europe, and that sucks. But we got those sponsors there. Xtrfy. If you need any perifs, mouse, keyboard, mouse pad, headset, take a look. They got some goodies. They got some wireless stuff. Some of those keyboards, you see, they've got fucking flags and names on them. It's pretty cool. All right, we've also got BitSkins. You know, everyone likes skins, like a Dragon Lore and Asimov. Maybe you're in the marketplace for a HAL. You're a big spender. You can check out BitSkins. They might be able to hook you up. And last but not least, N1Bet. Remember to gamble responsibly. All right, that's the sponsors done. That's the intro done. I'm tired. I just had a nap. I'm trying to wake myself up. I'm reading a quick list. Avoid hitting the snooze button. Avoid. Expose yourself to bright light. Well, this monitors the fucking sun. Make the bed. I slept on the couch. Drink a glass of orange juice. Don't have any. Enjoy a cup of coffee. Fell asleep while drinking the cup of coffee. This isn't on here, but if you slap yourself in the face, that didn't make the slapping noise, but I actually hit myself hard. You're kind of a bit more awake. Now, I'm going to shut the fuck up. Did you get a
cold shower?
Here's the first guy. His name's Prof, and he's talking about cold showers. I didn't have a cold shower, mate. I literally woke up at quarter to 9. I'm fucking zonked, mate.
As fuck. This is classic talent in esports.
I was having the nap to be in better shape, mate. I woke up today at 7 a.m. because they were dropping a dryer off between 7 and 2, and the dryer arrived at 7:45.
Damn.
You've never had anything delivered that early in your life.
No.
Nope.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's
insane scenes.
You can't get better than that. Striker, when was the earliest delivery you think you've ever had, and why was it the printer that you stole?
I don't know. Something usually things come at like 8 to 9. Sometimes a little bit later. Sometimes
actually, yeah. I had a delivery this morning. It was like 9 to 2, and it arrived at 9. And it was a sex toy. So there we go.
Wow. Okay. Keeping people awake from 9 to 5.
A little bit too much information.
Yeah. Okay. And
it was the inverse of a dryer when you think about it.
Wow. Fucking hell. This has come from nowhere early. The sexual connotations are rife this evening. Throughout, welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about sex toys. What's your experience in that field?
Yeah, I don't want to share too much, you know.
Okay.
Maybe not the inverse of a hair dryer, but it's
Oh, as long as everyone's feeling dry down there at the moment. You
How
know?
long has it been? Like 2 minutes we've been live. We're already here.
I'm not sure how we
Talking
got
about this,
here.
Let's go.
You know, there are a lot of things that we can go into with sex toys. Obviously, there's bondage gear. There's
Can go
different.
into a lot of things as well.
This episode, don't even try to mute anything. It's demonetized.
Yeah, there's not gonna be. Nothing's gonna actually get into the actual VOD. You know?
I don't know, man.
I don't know, the adult humor. I think we're all adults here. Counter-Strike, what is it? It's
Yeah, it's just a C
16
word.
plus,
Just
isn't
don't
it?
use the C
Yeah,
word.
even-
That's the
yeah.
only thing.
Yeah, chafage, because that always gets a bit rough during sexual intercourse. Okay. So look, we've done some light introductions here, but I want to get this thing started tonight because we've got lots to talk about. Lucas is here as well. Of course, he's making things happen. Lucas, I want to get into the recent news ASAP because then I want to get in the hot seat with Threat, and we have a lot to dive into over the last couple of years. So roll the bumper. Let's get into the recent news and let's get things underway. All right, we've got a bit of a softball here, a bit of a T-ball situation. We're going to whack this one. I don't know if it's home runs, but we're going to smash this one out the park. This one's an easy one. So the Blast major details have been released recently. They announced all the different qualifiers, all within the stages. They did a nice little video explainer, getting all that information out there. But something stood out a little bit like a sore thumb. That was the fact that there was only one open qualifier. This is mainly for the European side of things, and there was just a few questions around that, which back and forth it was tossed, schedule this, schedule that. But Prof, it appears that they have found a solution. Could you explain to the people at home with the new situation why it's important that we have at least more than one, so a minimum 2 of the open qualifiers with the new system?
I mean, if anyone watched any open qualifier or followed any open qualifier in the past, first of all, it's single elimination. Which in theory isn't that bad because we have all of these close qualifiers. So a lot of the good teams are already going to be invited, but like deciding 16 teams from one open qualifier means that like essentially you can win like 3 or 4 games. You're already through. And a lot of it is just decided based on seeding, right? So if the seeding is not good, which it oftentimes isn't in these qualifiers, because it's like it's hard to decide who is the number 40 against number 50 or number 75 or number 128. So you're bound to have some like weird matchups maybe earlier than they should be. It's just going to lead to some teams missing out based on, you just play the team that is objectively better while 10 other teams that are maybe worse than you didn't get to play. So that's just the problem of having one qualifier. So they switched it to 2. So it's now 8 teams per open qualifier in Europe, which is better. I still feel like 4 would be the right solution, 3 to 4, but it's, I don't think it's ideal for a major to have just like 2 qualifiers, but it's not a complete disaster as one was.
Yeah,
I'd say that.
From my
That's fair
side, I
enough.
think the bigger problem almost was that sometimes there were these like cheating scandals that happened in open qualifiers, and they basically never like went well for the team that got eliminated by that team. They always got eliminated by a cheating team, and then like a day later that team got disqualified, or maybe a couple of rounds later. But the tournament organizers never replayed the bracket like back to what was supposed to happen, with that team. So like that's kind of like how some teams just got out of these open qualifiers sometimes and had to try again. And obviously, with one open qualifier, that's just it. If that happens to you, and they're not willing to replay some of these situations. So that was the biggest danger that I saw, to be honest. Not even just that it was so cutthroat.
Yeah, I don't think there is necessarily an ideal format, right? This is always a bit chopping and changing, and we're always having a couple of new additions, this closed qualifying being one of them. Threat, let's get your more broad opinion on how things have adjusted here with the major qualifier, with the open qualifier now, the closed qualifier, the RMRs, all this different. How you feel with the way that teams are qualifying for the majors these days? Do you like it?
Well, sort of not the part where you go for the single elimination best of 1 brackets we're talking about here, right? Having only one is like nightmare fuel, like, especially when I worked as a coach. I remember we did a few of them, like the minor qualifiers way back. I remember we had some really poor results. Because I mean, not only are you like, it's super random because it's best of 1. When you're getting into these, I think Astralis was a team that struggled, right? Like,
last year.
Ago, like you're playing with so much pressure. You're playing against teams which you can find nothing on, and obviously they can look you up. And especially when you can have a top 50 team today that can like literally beat a top 20 team is just such a nightmare. And I think that's like one of the main reasons when you really get deep enough in the major that you don't have to go back and do that. It's just such a sigh of relief.
Yeah, for sure. And then one of the factors that's part of this modern day qualification is obviously this regional ranking that they've done, right? And I see that this getting critiqued as well. A lot of people having conversation around this. And I look, the way that they're calculating it is through like the prize money and teams beaten, right? Like that's kind of I'm dumbing it right down here. We don't know the full we don't have the full set of information as to how they determine it yet, right? It's not completely public in terms of like the way that they get there. But I think when we look at the ranking like this, the key is not to look at who is at the top of the ranking. The key is to look at who are the teams who are at the cusp of the cutoffs for each region, right? Because that's where the teams are going to be affected the most. So, Striker, is it top 16 from Europe that get invited to the closed qualifier?
Yeah, it's half and half should be for the closed qualifier. For in terms of open qualifier versus like regional standings teams.
Yeah, but some teams go directly to the RMR, so it's going to be more than the top 16, right? Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? So if you were to go through the list as it is right now, the teams who are in the top 16, a lot of those names are already going, like other than say G2, for example.
Like 12 out of the top 16 teams or something.
It looks
are
like
already
quite a lot,
RMR
right?
Or something, yeah.
Yeah, so then it's just going to shuffle down the list. So this is something that I don't think a lot of people have really like had the penny drop with just yet. Like not only are you going to get a whole bunch of names already through to the RMR, then you're going to get the whole next bunch of names who are going to get invited directly to the closed qualifier because they're all going to siphon in with the rank. And then it's going to, however far down the list we are, let's say we're down, I don't know, in the late 20s. Now, this is where you're having the conversation about those kind of names who might just miss out and have to go through the open qualifier. So if you're looking here, you've got like Monty, Heat, M Point, right? Those names who are currently down the bottom towards the 30th on that list. So that's going to have an impact in that way. And I don't think it's going to be as severe as what people are thinking. So we'll get to see those cutoff points come to fruition pretty soon, right? It's only a couple of weeks until that deadline comes in.
February 12th, I think, is when they decide that. So, I mean, at this point, I think
end
it's
of
fairly...
Katowice, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's at this point, it's already going to be fairly obvious, or at least, pretty close even from the current one, because I even like took a screenshot and put it together for what teams would make it. But it's essentially the current top 30 will be invited to either the RMR or the closed qualifier, at least, because, 14 out of the top 30 teams are going straight to the RMR, then the rest of the other 16 will go to the closed qualifier. And it's, I mean, yeah, there's been some kind of like criticism about specifically like opening and flames, being so high based on just farming some of these like tier two events. But generally, it's, as Prof said, it's more like lower down where people might have some issue with certain placings, but then you have that like other half, that could get decided from the open qualifiers.
Yeah, well, they're only going to get invited to the closed qualifier anyway, right?
Exactly. Like nobody actually gets to like RMR, like the land phase without playing each other,
Yeah.
And
so it's going to be.
I just want to add in, like, it's obviously better. We can't forget the system we had before this with the RMR points and all the qualifiers, like the past 2 years. So even like this is not a perfect ranking. I don't think there's any way of making a perfect regional ranking. But it still make way more sense than having I mean, we had like RMR points from, I don't know, like 8 months back when we qualified for a major. It's so weird.
It's definitely going to lighten the load. So job done there by Blast. So good job.
At the end of the day, you still need to win games to get to the major, which is the most important thing, right? You can't just luck yourself through some like random results. You need to go either to the RMR close qualifier, win X amount of games to get to the major to earn like the stickers and stuff. So I feel like it's still a decent system, right?
Yeah, I think it's more like the straight qualifier, the straight invites to the RMR are basically like the only part where people get to skip phases, right?
Yeah.
Because at this point, like last time we just had, I don't know how many spots exactly. Was it 16 as well? Or maybe it was 18 or something that we had from open qualifiers going straight to the RMR. Now we have 16 teams just going straight to the closed qualifier, where from that, the 18 teams will go to the RMR, So essentially there's quote unquote no harm done in terms of like how more closed it is, because it's still the same amount of teams that get the open opportunity, that get through like the first phase, but then they will have to prove themselves against the better teams, So there's more like the extra step of the closed qualifier that kind of makes the difference now, rather than suddenly it being more like partner team heavy, as people like to call it, just based on rankings.
There is something that I want to bring up here. So, Pipe Bomb in chat said if Astralis can farm blast points, then Copenhagen should be able to allowed to farm CCT points. That's in response to someone else here. But as far as this ranking goes, I'm going to be interested to see how that works, right? Because Astralis so far haven't won a game at Blast, right? And the teams that they've been playing are exclusively within the Blast partner club. So let's say that they beat NIP. Okay, well, they're actually ahead of NIP on the rankings right now. So how much is that going to bolster them? Probably not a lot because NIP is already below them. So
we
I
can
think,
see that very specifically. Only if you have been released and they were only during the break. So like next update, we'll actually get a decent idea of how, like at least
what's going to
how
affect
it works.
what.
You know.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for that, and we can discuss that maybe in greater length the next time because I fucking suck with numbers and stuff, and I'm trying to understand it like a Neanderthal here. So I probably am not going to be able to be as equipped as somebody like Threat, who when I was, I was reading through today, May, I was having a little bit of a look. What do we got here? There was one little line here that you went and did after working as a developer / data scientist for 2 years, right? So you would be great with the numbers, Threat. You would be able to break all this stuff down for us, right? You should be able to explain it to simpletons like me. I'm not throwing it on you right now, but I'm sure you're better with the numbers than myself.
Yeah, well, it's become a really big part of the game the past 2 years, and that was sort of the idea. And I mean, I will get much deeper into this when I discuss like my 2-year tenure here now at NIP.
Okay.
But
I won't jump the gun then.
Yeah, but regarding the actual the rankings, I do like in the beginning I was very opposed to the idea to use because as you said earlier, Chad, I think prize money weighs very heavily in this regional ranking, right?
I believe so.
And it is like a very, very abstract idea to use prize money, but in general, on average, it actually kind of makes sense.
Right.
So
I agree.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's like if you actually look at it, I would almost agree with it. Right.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the other thing that is kind of important with this change is how they moved up the Americas qualifiers because they were kind of clashing with Pro League as they were at that point. And so some teams who would have been in Pro League Group A would have had a problem because, basically all of them have to play either the open qualifier or the closed qualifier. And so that means, that just creates a clash and they have to be in the Americas for that. And they wouldn't have the time to travel over in time. They basically would have had to play
schedule
both.
clashes.
Yeah, but that's a lot of what this is for, though, right? Is to help lighten a bit of the load.
I love CS. I love CS. Well, the schedule clashes 2 weeks into the year. We have teams signing up fucking stand-ins that they then can't use because they got like misinformation.
But let's get to that.
It's all great. Yeah,
right. We'll get there.
Do we want to skip the Frenchies thing?
No, let's quickly. We'll just touch on this. We don't have to dive into any real detail, right? But French Counter-Strike in the lead up to the major, bonsoir messieurs, has just blown up. There's been a couple of changes going on. So Body has gone to Falcons to replace that of Hadji. We've got Afro going on over to replace Gravity on LDLC. Basically, there's a whole move around. Lucky is now back with some of the boys who were over on Heat, right? So there's just been a couple of changes. I don't think there's too much to get excited about here. There wasn't too much to get excited about before with the French Counter-Strike.
I think just moving this is the question.
Pieces around.
We can do a thumbs up or thumbs down. Essentially, thumbs up if we think this improved French team's chances to get to the major. And thumbs down if we think it made it worse.
All right. So what I want to do with this is then I want a visual and an audio because the people at home listening with the audio only will require an audio, and the people who are watching on the video will love the visuals. So Striker, you go first. I want this to be very dramatic. I want you to think Gladiator, Russell Crowe. He's just been a fucking badass in the ring. You think of this motherfucker, he's going to usurp me. The people, they're starting to see through this fucking Roman circus that we're putting on here. This cunt has to die. Right, so give me the thumbs down with all of that in mind. All right,
can I just say, just looking at the changes, can I just say, can both die?
You can kill everybody.
The whole thing up,
yeah, kill everybody,
like,
man.
That's kind of like what I'm thinking about the changes. That hasn't necessarily improved Falcons in my eyes, particularly. And
where's the thumb? I can't see the thumb. Okay, there you go.
And I'm just saying, in general, it doesn't have to be for a specific team because the goal, the dream is for one team to make it, right?
What about Nakama?
Is that the name of Shox's one?
Yeah. The Smiths, 3 other players I actually haven't heard of.
Yeah.
I'm sticking
Well,
to the
it's
thumbs
exciting
down.
that they're trying. I'm doing a thumbs down. French Counter-Strike
but
right now.
I think actually the Falcons thing is maybe it's an improvement.
That's the most exciting.
I think that in LDLC they got a bit more talent. The Heat is kind of falling apart, so I think they consolidated a bit of the talent. So I'm gonna say a thumbs up, but like a I don't know, 45
But how do
degree
you
or
how do
something.
you feel about the fact that they just reformed the core of G2 that existed like 5 years ago?
I feel like that's fucking amazing. Honestly, it's the G2 super team.
But French Counter-Strike's won 2 majors across the years. We had 2 rosters. Happy was Happy
I
in
mean,
both
8
of them?
and 9 years ago. Remember?
Ah, shit. All right. Well, we
If
are that
Happy
old.
comes back, it's done.
That's the answer.
All of these Scandinavians can just pack their shit again. It's the Deagle coming out. He's gonna fuck everything up.
It
That's where he's
actually
gonna
feels a
sweat
bit
blood.
similar to the Swedish scene a few years back. What's happening
Okay.
now in the French scene? It's sort of they couldn't get a really good team together. Now they're spreading out, and I know what happened in the Swedish scene. It's very easy to get into this sort of but we just need to change a few players. I'm going to move to that lineup now. It's going to work, and all of a sudden you're in this big mess, and no one is good anymore.
Everyone's in
That's
the
sort
bin.
of what it feels to the French scene. They have Saiwu, right?
That kind of helps.
Does help.
That's a good start.
But it also-
you just need a once in a 10-year prodigy for your country, and then you're kind of relevant if you import like 3 different players and a different coach from a different country, and you're like, we're doing good, guys.
But
Yes.
isn't it fucked? Like, you think about it, the Polish scene, the French scene, and the Swedish scene are all in the bin, and they're all like at the top, like in early CSGO. They're all like pretty much in the bin. But there's lots of teams, there's lots of players, but they're just never the right mix to be like competitive as a core unit. Maybe we're past those days. Maybe there's only international Counter-Strike now. Maybe it's all over. Maybe we need to talk about a Dane to NIP, and I'm not talking about S-Attack. We're talking about Config. He's back in the ring. That's a bad reference. I didn't even mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that.
blow.
Going back to
He's back in the server. He's back in the game. He's back again after the whole phase situation that I think we'll call it to start off the blast groups. Fuck, I feel like a dick. I actually didn't mean to do that. And now he's going to be playing for NIP, which is funny because they have S-Attack on the bench still. But anyway, we learned today that Hampus is out. It appears that it could. I'm speculating a little bit here, but they said personal issues, so maybe some burnout. I saw some tweets from Jonas saying they're putting their full support behind him. Hampus obviously was in-game leading and putting up with a lot of the chopping and changing with all these academy players during the whole device situation. And now that things were just starting to seem to take shape when they got head triggers and AWPA, well, he's gone. It seems pretty classic for NIP threat, and we've got you in as the resident NIP expert for this evening. Did you forecast this one, mate?
Well, not really. I knew that Hampus have had some issues before, right? He stood out some tournaments in the middle of last year, right? So I sort of knew that this could always happen. And it's just very unfortunate, because I mean, it's almost become a meme that NIP just keeps changing players all the time, right? But in the past, well, now it's over a year, right? It's been just a lot of very bad circumstances over and over again. It's like, obviously, Config is a good player. Hampus has to step down if he's feeling really bad. Timing just sucks. They just can't catch a break.
I mean, if anything, this timing is actually not that bad because they're already in kind of a flux, so might as well just do 2 changes at the
We
same time.
keep changing all the time, so why not just keep changing?
Threat, do you want the number of players that played in NIP, just like in any capacity, 2 maps or more, from 2020 to the end of last year? So in 2020, 2021, 2020, 3 years.
So
How many players played in NIP? I have it ready, so you want to guess? You are one of the players.
Yeah, oh yeah, I actually played Pro League. Wow. Oh my God, it's. I mean, I can't just count them because then I will know it for sure, right?
No,
it's above 10, right?
Yeah, 15 players.
Fucking hell.
And then if we add like Maxter and
EG, 3
then
rosters.
Headtrick and Config now, that's going to be like 18 in like 3
Just
years
over
and
3 years.
3 months. So this is the list: Threat, Rolf, LNZ, ZTR, Fuzi, S-Attack, Twist, Plopski, Knock, Lekro, Device, Alexi B, Campus, Res, and Brolin. That's like 3 full lineups. Of
like
people.
some of them. I mean, Rolf, I think he played like
He also
one
played like
match.
a couple of, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so it's
So
a
just
bit
like you,
pushing
but
it.
everyone else played like at least like 10 maps, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not only the players, right? If you look back at the PGL Stockholm major, I mean, I was the head coach. We didn't have trolls. We had another like performance director or mental coach, whatever you want to call it, and we had Mahone. So we had another analyst as well,
True.
right?
Yeah.
So everything just kept changing, right? And it's funny how a lot of it is done with like a good reason, like the things happening now with Hampus is just annoying that it just so happened to happen in a very short period of time, and when it was a meme as well, it didn't make it better.
Sure. Yeah, well, let's build on this specific, and then let's dive into the history. This will tee us up nicely to go and then explore like all of your time returning to NIP in that coaching role. So there was the classic HLTV Jinx striker. There was an article that came out not that long ago with the headline with Alexi B was saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but saying ones of hopefully we don't have any changes for a while, and then this goes and happens. So
that lasted for a week, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, obviously this is out of their control. I'm sure the same thing with the device situation. I don't think anybody wanted it to go down the way it did, but that's just kind of the way it went. But let's build on what you said about like this being a good time for this to happen. Config coming in. Now, we know that Hampus likes a bit of aggression, but then he would turn into a bit of a lurky boy, right? Config, he likes his aggression, and then he's going to bite your head off, right? Whereas Hampus, he'll come up, he'll jump all over you, and then he might disappear under the couch. You know, you lose track of him. Config, he's not that type of player, and then you think you've got a Brolin and a Rez who are also that way inclined when it comes to rifling, maybe not even as much. So how's this balance going to work? Is it something that you can see? Because I think with the announcement from NIP, we're expecting the next couple of events, hey, Config's going to be there. It feels like they've got him as permanently temporary.
No, I think it's very permanent at this point. I mean, from the wording that was in the statement, like it's very clear that Config is just going to be there in long term. And I even got it confirmed on the side that it is a long term contract that Config is on. So Hampus is just not expected to come back at any point soon. Basically, like for the first part of the season, there doesn't seem to be like any world where he actually comes back into the lineup. It's just at this point they're just counting on Config for the very foreseeable future.
But you see the change here, Prof. They're not going with an academy individual. They had obviously Max to stand in just the other day, but they're going in the direction of bringing in someone who they know is extremely qualified and hungry and has the ability. So this feels like a move to win.
Yeah, but it's also kind of playing the market, right? You don't really have this kind of a player being a free agent very often. So probably in a normal circumstance, you wouldn't be able to get him for free, and then you opt for a academy player or something. But Config being there, it's just a matter of time before someone snaps him up and gives him a shot. And especially because like this situation being like Campus might come back in a couple of months. So even if something goes wrong, and obviously Config had some like out of server issues, even if that rises up again, then you can always bring back Hampus at some point, right? If that's a situation. So I feel like they play the market well, right? I don't see how this is a bad move from them in any direction. And they also need, as we just talked about, they need some stability, not to play with a fucking academy player that has zero experience
and try to build
again, because they actually already have him. It's Hedrick. They have an academy player that has no experience. So like that's enough of gambling for one team.
Yeah, I just want to add to that as well, right? Where a lot of people in comments in the community can easily come like, yeah, but why do you have a talent team? You should just bring them in immediately. But the point of a talent team is to bring in someone if you feel like they can perform at tier 1, which can happen, right? You're not going to do it just because you're supposed to do it, right? The A team of any of these tier 1 organizations will always be trying to become the best. And I mean, we even saw that with Navi, right? With the entire SDY and PL situation, right? You just have to feel it out. You can't just force someone in. It's like a mistake I actually think I made during this 2-year tenure as well.
Oh, I do want to get to that, but before we get there, what do you think this means for S-Attack, the super sub, who's getting thrown around like a used fucking sausage, mate? He's not getting, he's playing for FaZe, sure. He just got some glowing reviews from some of the individuals he played with on FaZe. They've qualified for the arena now, but NIP have him on the bench and they're not using him when the opportunity arises. how do you think this is for Esatag and his future NIP? Dunzo?
Well, I don't know anything for sure. I do think that is the case. I mean, I don't think they want to do any more changes because they just wanted an op to remove the Esatag. And you can't forget, like, if they remove Hampus, they lose the Swedish core of having 3 Swedish players, which is a big deal for NIP, right? So I think that will also play into this.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this now. Let's pivot. Lucas, do you want to play the bumper for YouTube's sake? Do you want to just transition in there gently? Because we're gonna grill. You want the bumper? All right. Let's put Threat in the hot seat. All right, so we've actually brought Threat here today because he was meant to come to the award show, but then he fucking dodged, and Prof wants to grill him live about why he dodged the award show right here, right now, live.
We need
Threat,
some answers.
we need
right
to speak.
now.
You need to speak here, mate. It was in Sweden. Why were you not there?
I'm coughing.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
He was making sure that no one else gets sick. Put like everyone else in front of his own needs and desires to be there, right? So I actually applaud your bravery in this situation.
Yeah, you went well, right? So yeah, it's a bit. I liked having all the faces there. Would have been great to have you as well, but we haven't even talked about the award show since we did it. This is our first show since the award show.
I went in hibernation for like a week. I literally just like slept 12 hours and ignored the world. It was great. It was amazing.
I had to disappear for a couple.
I did.
As well.
DJL came, and I flamed him a bit. We flamed him live on the show, I think, for some of the changes. But then also,
it was a gentle flaming. You know, it was a bit more of like
enough,
a flambe.
He told me that he denied campus from coming to the award show because they need to practice the next day or something. It was like kind of a joke thing, but maybe it wasn't a joke. Maybe that's why campus is not playing.
And now he's
because
he
got upset that he couldn't go to the award show, and he was just like, the FOMO was so strong that he had to like take a break from CS.
Wow, this is an interesting theory that you've crafted here. All right, let's get the focus back on Threat here for a second. So I just want to give everybody a little bit of a history lesson, and then we can pick and choose where we want to start here, Threat. So you were coaching NIP back in January 2016 to February 2018. You won 3 international titles back there with the team: DreamHack Masters Malmo 2016, DreamHack Open Valencia 2017, and IEM Oakland. And then you resigned to quote, pursue other things in life. Then you were replaced by Pitta. You came back in early 2020 as a strategic coach. And that was part of where, after working as the quote, after working as a developer / data scientist for 2 years, you felt there's still a lot of things, still had a lot of CSGO left in me, and that these 2 years have given me a new, fresh perspective on how to approach the game. I figure if it's a quote, I should make sure I read it correctly. And then you transitioned and quickly replaced Pitta as the head coach in mid 2020, and then you were there as the head coach up until, well, you're there part of NIP up until December of last year. So those are the main talking points there. I guess we start with your return. Do we want to start there, Prof? You said you wanted to do some history.
Yeah, I think kind of just coming back into the team and setting up the new team, right? It doesn't really matter how he got into the team, but that was kind of the start of this whole new NIP with the kind of upper management control of the team, and it led into all of these roster changes. I think the first one that kind of took people off guard was like Lekro leaving the team. And at the time, I think we might have also had you on the show like shortly after that or something. Just kind of how the team started being set up from like a leadership point of view, and what your role was in kind of building this new NIP after Forest and Get Right.
Okay, so if I look back in my entire career, even the 2016, 2017 years, 2020 is by far my worst year as a coach. There's many factors to this, I think. I mean, I joined the team. We went to Katowice, and literally mid Katowice, COVID happened. I don't know if you were there, but I think they played in the arena, right? But there was no audience. Yeah. So I had to sort of adapt to that new environment. I think I handled it quite poorly, to be honest. And that entire first year, in some ways, was a bit of a waste. then sort of coming into the next year, 2021, I think the biggest thing we did there was actually bringing in the Young Ninja squad. Not only because we brought in ZTR almost immediately, right? But we sort of had a few youngsters sort of like putting a bit of pressure on the A team. Like we are willing to pick someone of you, right? And immediately at the start of that year, this was still during COVID, right? We just had our results just became so much better. And this is even before we had Device. Bringing in Device in the mid of I think it was May.
April, I think.
Yeah, that was a shock to a lot of people. When we announced that. We obviously got a lot better because Device is a really fucking good player. So, but just sort of before that, when we had Knock instead of Device, we still had a really good run in Pro League. We had a few really good results, especially considering ZTR was calling on a few of the maps, and he literally had 0 experience in the top.
But I mean, that's a good place to start. I mean, how do you just go about kind of bringing in this academy team and then immediately bringing this guy in and having him even call? It seems like from the outside, it's a really big step, and especially having that sort of responsibility. That's something that was very heavily criticized at the time.
Yeah, so you have to think about the end of 2020. I just it was my worst year coaching ever. We had really bad results. I think we ended at 16th in the world, and which was super disappointing because I really tried to put in a lot of effort that year. So at that point, I sort of regretted that. As soon as you feel like this team is not going to work, you need to make a change. It's because you can't just force it, right? And if that change is taking a gamble, I think that is fine. I mean, it's better to take a gamble than to do nothing and you truly don't believe anything's going to happen. We knew we wanted some good energy into the team because it was the energy with the twist lineup we had the year before was just really poor. It was just a bunch of old Swedish players. Most of them were actually very good. We just didn't get anything going. So we just wanted some energy. We brought in ZTR, and I think it was a Blast qualifier first, where we beat Astralis in the first match, I think, if I remember correctly. Yes, that's right. I think what happened later and what I noticed is you sort of get a honeymoon period when you put in a young player like that because he will add so much energy, but there will be a very big discrepancy in experience that will catch up with you eventually. And we saw this with ZTR because it did start to get nervous. It started to happen when we were looking really good, and he becomes actually a part of the team. Then he gets the true pressure, and he starts performing bad, and there's bad comments written about him, and this really gets to the not so experienced players, right?
Very interesting to hear that kind of inverse kind of logic of the pressure. It's not the pressure isn't there when you just come into the team because no one's expecting anything, but then after a while it's okay, he's actually kind of okay, and then it's expected to continue in that direction. Then it kind of starts piling up. I didn't really think about it from that point of view, but it does make sense. And additionally, of course, people just understand how the player plays a bit more, start to, getting into tendencies and stuff like that. So a lot of the younger players, I feel get figured out after a month, and things get a lot harder.
Yeah, it's also a bit on me, because if I could have predicted this, maybe I could have preemptively stopped this from happening. Because even yourself, when things are going really well, you see that he's performing, everything is going you don't even see the problem, because it's like an inverse comes after, because you would think that the pressure is playing Astralis for the first time ever, but it's really not, because you're literally playing without pressure because you're expected to do nothing in that sense, right?
No, I'm following along here. There's so many, now that we're going over this, there's whole little periods of NIP that just I was holy shit, that was a roster playing for a while.
That happened, yeah.
And that was your life. You were one of the people having to fucking spin these plates all the time, because eventually, and this is reflecting back on it, it was how the fuck was this team like still able to be consistently somewhat competitive, considering all the changes that just kept happening. Like this, and this is just one of the early ones, right? This is, I don't know how you fucking dealt with it, mate. It must have fried the brain.
Yeah, I mean, it was really tough. And I mean, the team, it was all on me because I was the head coach. And I think when you actually own the responsibility, then you have to take action. And that was sort of the end of 2020. It's very easy to sit on HLTV comment or anything and sort of be like, yeah, why did you pick that player? Why did they change him all the time? But like in reality, like, okay, were we supposed to keep going? Like I did something drastic. Maybe it wasn't the right choice. And it sort of segues into another change I did, which in hindsight, maybe it was too early. And it's not like I regret this decision, but it's one that I was like, I wonder what have happened if I didn't do it. And it's after Flashpoint, because we had some struggles with Eric or ZTR. And we played really well in Flashpoint. We lost to Mouse in the final. There was an entire Anonimo thing, but let's not get it.
40%, right? Yeah.
40% loss and still came second. Whatever.
Some good memes.
Oh god,
some fun times.
Forgot about yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, then we changed to Linus, and I sort of think the way my mindset at that time was, I was so scared of letting it become sort of another 2020 where I was way too passive. So I sort of felt like, do I believe this lineup will win? No, we just came second. I still have to do it, like, because I didn't believe at it at this time. And to this day, like, we had some really good runs with Linus, as we did with Eric, right? I mean, we peaked even at like we were the second best team in the world for a while when we had the Linus device lineup. We were on to like something really good there for a while. But that change might have been unnecessary in the sense, I don't know, like they're so evenly matched, those two players, in what they bring. And we had some experience prior with Eric, right? So that was might be the weirdest one I made, I think, looking back.
That was a year when I remember, like, I think the whole narrative was about NIP was like, there's no reason why they should, but they will. Like, it was like consistently making playoffs, and that kind of continued the next year as well, of all of these like kind of over performance results. Of course, I guess when Device was playing, then people actually expected you guys to do well, and then you also did win your first tournament and made like major playoffs and stuff like that. But especially after Device's departure, like, he still managed to make playoffs, and then like also change players every 3 months. So how much work was put into like managing that? Because I remember also like some of the campus quotes, about just teaching a new kid all of the smokes and shit every month, and being kind of, I don't know if this is a quote or this is like kind of my understanding of the thing.
Yeah,
but
well, that is Hampus being a bit
manage to
Hampus.
perform? Yeah. Actually, side quote, when a side point, when Campus does an interview, is like all of the NIP office just like this. What is he gonna say? Please
No
don't
comments.
say anything.
No comments here. Right? No
Okay. Just turn off the TV and walk away, and then just look at Twitter if anything pops up. But
Damage control and speed dial.
Tell me about putting in like the work and how you put it together actually with all of these changes.
I think because I had a very good team behind me as well, like it was very different from the like 2016, 2017 days. We sort of just had a very solid system at that time. I do think we were ahead of the curve. I would even say I know we were like with most of the top teams. Like we had we practiced against like young ninjas. We had like we really used the scrims to the maximum. I don't really think we played that much compared to other teams. I mean, especially if you look at the early days of like Gambit youngsters, who were like absolutely insane. They like 10 scrims a day or something. I just think we were very efficient, and that was not only thanks to me. I think like we brought in Mahone. We can't forget that in the end of 2020 as like one of the most hardworking persons I've ever met, honest. So he helped me a lot during that period with the prep and everything. And I mean, everything we did back then, obviously now is just like every team seems like they have a talent team and they bring in someone from that lineup into their team. Obviously, some teams have taken that concept and perfected it even further, right? I think this is a bit of a side note, but I just realized today with the Navi Junior team, you imagine they had Monacy, they had Bit, they had NPL, and they had Headtrick.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could almost make like an entire tier 1 player lineup, right? From just their talent team. So that did help a lot that we had that system behind.
Yeah, well,
NIP.
that's one of the things that's like broken out, right? And NIP was definitely one of those teams who were, I don't want to say leading the charge, but definitely very involved in that time. And we saw you guys have done a lot of promotions up and down as well with all of that, and you saw it in varying successes. The one that I want to kind of quiz you about a bit more is the whole data science side of things, because I know Valens, I think he's experienced in the same type of stuff, but I don't know what that means. Like, as far as Counter-Strike goes and data science, and what are we talking about here? Are we just talking about like really breaking down the stats to see where players like weaker or stronger? Like what's the application here in modern day Counter-Strike?
It's a very tough subject. I do think most teams overdo it, or they use it in, like, as you said, like for players, and they make it too much of a, I don't know the English for, like the micro thing. Whereas I do think you can use a lot of data science when it comes to sort of the macro level of the game. And I do think we can see that with a lot of the CIS teams, where you can sort of, if we starting to save ST, even a situation which seems really weird when you're watching the match, but if you like start really thinking about it in the bigger span over tournaments, what that will mean is like how many sort of weapon rounds could we maybe get over 10 tournaments if we start making this decision, even though it goes against like nature
current meta CS, right? Yeah, current logic.
Okay. Do you have any examples of that you can share with us?
Yeah, well,
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm actually very interested, because the application of this stuff to me, like, I think with what you're saying here, what you just set up in that tiny little snippet, like I'm still the caveman. Like, this is Counter-Strike and this is how we do it. But this data helping make more informed decisions, I imagine.
Well, it's not like Moneyball, if you've seen that movie. Maybe we will get to that point. I don't know. Maybe I am the caveman when you get like a new person that is just 10 times smarter, and he will say like, yeah, just look at this number. In all honesty, I think it's a little bit of a marketing thing. Like, I don't think teams really use it that much unless it's on ways that I just said with sort of the economy. I obviously don't know what other teams do. I don't know what the EG is doing. But I mean, what you could look at is rather, okay, we've made some very big changes to the entire setup and to improve our CT sites. And over the past 6 months, have they improved? It's not really more complicated than that at this point for us, right? Because I think if you start delving too deep into these things, it's too easy to get into the trap of over analyzing, and then because there's just too much variance in CS.
Okay.
Yeah. And not the sample size, I guess, is also not that big, right?
Here's something I'm curious about. Obviously, you know, when all these academy changes happened, when those promotions happened, like when we saw the teams do it, obviously, you know, it worked very well only at the time when like it was amazing players that were promoted. You know, like look at Monacy, you know, how he was dominating the academy league completely. Or even like Bits at the time as well, of course. I mean, we had the Mouse and XT guys who were really very, very strong in the academy leagues. Obviously, you know, Rhiannon just did reasonably well, but they didn't have one super standout player, especially not like among those guys that were necessarily promoted. You know, like they didn't dominate the league on an individual level. And I think people were just curious about how, like, what the reasoning was behind promoting them instead of, you know, bringing in somebody new. Like we've seen, for example, this year, kind of like NIP moving away from just like delving into their academy team and rather bringing in exports from outside, right? So I'm curious about the justification for going that route instead of attempting to maybe get another player from a different team or somebody who's free.
You meaning it's Young Ninjas or maybe?
No, I mean from when you made those promotions, like for example when ZTR came in, and then when LNZ and Fuzi, of course, when you had that whole situation.
Okay, so if you think back to that those days, we were still obviously a full Swedish lineup, and the only really like top Swedes, because we already had Lekro, Forest was in Dignitas, and Brawlen and Crims, they were in Fnatic. I mean,
running out of names.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's that's also when I reached a point where, because the Swedish scene, and if we like at that point, you have to think about, right? We're supposed to be a Swedish team. We try to make a Swedish team the best team in the world. Like, how do you do that from that point? Even the best players with Brawlen and Crims, obviously they weren't the best in the world at that point either. So okay, then you sort of have to think outside of the box, and you have to take some risks. Okay, then we have to look into newer players, and you might as well do it immediately. And that was my logic, right? When I brought in ZTR, and funnily enough, if you look at all the results that NIP had past the years I was there, now is when we had a young Ninja player, in general, we played a lot better. I mean, that's a very basic data science. If you look over the entire years, like even when we brought in Esotag and Device, obviously that was a very, very short stint. But it wasn't like, okay, now we don't have a young Ninja, now we become super good immediately, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm guessing, the Fnatic guys weren't an option at the time. Obviously we saw Brawlen getting bought out eventually, but that was like a year later.
Yeah, I mean, you have a list of, I mean, Device was obviously on that list, and Brawlen, players that if you can get them, right? Which obviously makes sense, and especially like for Device, who was fluent in Swedish, it was like a no-brainer.
Right.
What do you?
Maybe just a quick question for people that are watching this and they don't really know how an org works. You, as a head coach of NIP, how much influence do you have over transfers, like buying out other players? Do you have like a wish list? Do you go and ask for a player? Do they turn it down, or do they come to you and say like, oh, we can get this player? Like, how does that work actually?
Well, it's exactly how we think it is, right? Because I have the technical knowledge of the game. I will determine how good these players are and how much value they bring to the team. And when it comes to the actual money side, that obviously is on other people in the org.
Who initiates like, let's go and try to buy Brawlen? Like, who comes up with? Do you go to them and say like, let's buy Brawlen, or do they come to you and say, what do you think about Brawlen?
Well, when it comes to ideas, everyone can chip in. It could even be a player, right? We do talk to the players, not like they're completely in the dark on everything. Even though it
not completely.
Yeah, well, not completely, yeah. But the actual execution, I mean, in our case, because Jonas Gunderson is like the GM, it is Jonas Gunderson, right?
Yeah.
For us. But obviously, I had a lot to do with it. If I said, like, there's no way we're picking that player, it would have been very unlikely that he would have chosen.
Okay.
Was there kind of, I don't want to say like a hard line, but was it coming from the top, like, hey, we really want to invest in this academy roster and want to be able to build the players of the future? Because like that's a long-term endeavor, right? That's not saying you just go, hey, let's start this, shall we? And then you just fucking bin it if it doesn't work immediately. Like, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's dead in the water now. There's obviously still an opportunity that good players can come through it. Now that the team isn't full Swedish anymore, that integration becomes, well, you guys are fucking fantastic at English over there in the Nordic region. So that's really here nor there. But like returning to the original point I was making here, was that for like a top-down line, like, hey, if we can we use these academy guys? Or was it, as you were saying, hey, there was just no one we could get? Because you could have gone international earlier, right? If you really wanted.
Yeah, of course. I mean, every time we made a change, we always asked that question if we wanted to do it. But at that time, it was only 1 year in for me and actually Jonas as well at that point. So we still wanted to like keep the Swedish identity, and I I think we still believe that we really could do it at that point. And I mean, there's still a part of me that do believe in Swedish CS eventually. It just needs to get a bit more organized, so we get more players. But I think when we decided to go international is just when it reached the point of, okay, well, it's very basic in the sense of, okay, we need an opera. Then we sort of reached, okay, how the hell do we do this, right? we were sort of pushed into a corner, and you could try to play around with it a lot, but if the true end goal is to win a major, like trying to win a major, it was very hard to justify keeping it Swedish.
Okay. I wanted to. I'm kind of all over the place right now. This is the age-old question, right? I guess we can transition because we were flirting with talking about this anyway. But the state of Swedish Counter-Strike at the moment, like, what's your take? Why is it where it is? Where have the biggest failures, at least from your position, come from? Or is that just, hey, there's just not many good people who are like good enough to play at the top level of Counter-Strike at the moment from Sweden? How's the framing from your perspective?
In some ways, it's hard for me, like, because I'm privileged in a way where when I've been working with CS, I've been working with, to take the entire pool of players in the world, like, but just in Sweden, and I've only been working in, like, as I said, like, my worst year, it was terrible. We were still 16th in the world. So it's really hard for me to know and see all the problems in the lower tiers, like, maybe, and that's a bit on me. Maybe I should have been more involved in that. But in all honesty, I could just guess what the differences are. Like, the classic answer is, like, nowadays it's more individual based in the sense where you just play for elo. We're back in the day in Sweden, we had like a really good community, and I mean, really old people watching this and listening to this who knows IRC. And I think a lot of our good team play and good pool of players came from having that community where you sort of maybe you weren't playing in a team necessarily, but you always played in sort of the same pool of players instead of just trying to get a higher elo, playing with randoms all the time, just getting good stats yourself and then hoping to get into FPL or whatever and getting picked up.
Yeah, the reward system's definitely changed with the way that Counter-Strike seems to be incentivized at the moment. Like, I think, yeah, I'm definitely old enough to remember the culture that you're talking about, right? Like, team-based Counter-Strike used to be the focus. It was just about winning, right? Like, obviously having good stats and stuff was good, but back when we were playing 1.6, if the bomb went off or you defused it, you got +3 anyway, right? So people were always running for diffusers, or they were happy to plant the bomb, so stats always looked a little bit more inflated. So yeah, I think that's like something that's been a bit of a detriment everywhere. But there's eyeballers and there's like the new Godsent roster as well. And the thing is, there's some names in here that we've obviously seen before, like Plopski and Draken, for example. And then you've obviously got JW and Flusher and co over with the eyeballers project. But then it's like about the promise. And your boy ZTR is in the Godsent roster. There's also Joel. I read on the forums. Apparently, he's got a bit of a decorated history. I don't know anything about his history, but people are saying, you know, he might have been a naughty boy once upon a time. Do you know anything about him, Threat? Are any of these guys nuggets? And any of these gonna, you know, we can shine them on down? They're actually a piece of gold.
Well, I truly believe in ZTR, right? I truly believe he can become a really good IGL in a top team. Whether he will bring like glory to Sweden or if he eventually will end up in an international team as an IGL, I don't know. But I mean, he definitely has the talent. He's very smart. I mean, he still just needs some more experience, and it's quite difficult to be the IGL when you're younger than everyone else.
True.
Right.
Hard to get that respect.
Yeah, and regarding to both Godsent and eyeballers, it's I mean, I don't believe with the current iteration of their lineups, any of them gonna make it into the top 20. And I truly, when I say this, I truly mean it. I hope I'm wrong about it. I truly mean it. But it's just not maybe too many old players. But in some sense, like if I look at Godsent, I believe in ZTR. I still believe in Plopski. I just think he was a wrong fit at that time for us because he had some, like, the first year in 2020, the bad year, he was the one that stood out to me that entire year, right? So I do think he has a spot in tier 1. And I mean, Joel, I don't know much about him, but it's a sort of the same thing when we brought in Set2R. I'd rather gamble on Joel than bringing in some old players that's already been tried in sort of not Gamer Legion, but you know what I mean, like the Gamer Legion kind of teams.
Yeah.
That is
So
over
what do you
25.
what do you think went wrong with Plopski? Because that's exactly what I was going to ask before you went there anyway. Because as you say, like at the beginning, we thought, okay, this might be the next big Swedish player. Like he really did well in his first year with an IP, but then suddenly, like the team was doing better, but not him specifically. And I feel like a part of it that I thought had to do with his roles just changing and him not just being in the aggressive positions that he used to be. I'm curious, what's your take on that?
I think it's both. Obviously, he didn't always have the positions he wanted to have. But at the same time, I think I made a mistake. I should have pushed him a bit harder in trying to learn, because he was so inexperienced. And when you're sort of that early in your career, you sort of have to try to learn all the positions. You can't immediately in your career, like, I'm going to be an entry fragger and then not do anything else. I always told when I coached Young Ninjas and even the Impact team this, right, where if you pick the like simple, right, he's going to be better than you at all positions. And that means, like, even if you're specialized in this, like, he's still going to be better than you. So like the earlier you are in your career, the more you have to be open to try things out. And I think that's a mistake a lot of young players do, that they immediately become, okay, I'm just going to be good at holding monster and overpass, or be the lurker. And the further you get into tier 1, actually, I mean, even you guys have an article about this where like the entry fragger role is like literally dying as well. And when to come back to Plopski, right, that is actually on me a bit, because I was the one coaching him, and I should have pushed him harder. And even if I look back in my entire coaching career, I think now that I had like 1 or 2 months to reflect on this, something I was really bad at was making players better. I was always good with making the most out of the players I had in a team sense. I mean, we can talk about back to the lineup you talked about, right, Chad, with the Set2R knock lineup, which I do think like we truly overperformed. But I never really like pushed someone to become even greater. And I mean, I had Res, who is very, very talented. I mean, it was also part of my old experience. Like I was used to work with like Get Right and Forest. I played with them. I coached them. Like teaching them these things wasn't necessary.
Yeah. So yeah, you what you're saying is like you improve people, you improve teams like as teams, not as individuals, essentially, like not improving the individual game.
But you're kind of looking at the macro, right? So you're looking
Yeah.
at like, how can we win this round? Like, what can we do? What strategy is good? Like, what move is good? As opposed to how can I make this player better at decision making in this thing, or how can we make it so that he's putting himself in positions where his aim is better, right? Like those guys, that's a hard thing to do. That's like, because you kind of have to be living and breathing what that player is doing individually. Then you've got 5 people, then you're thinking the overall game plan, then you're working on strategy and stuff. And and this role is still being defined literally every single day that people do it. Like we are seeing the Counter-Strike coaches learn to become Counter-Strike coaches. This is not something that existed all that long ago, right? So it's still quite a new, I don't want to say it's not a new industry, a new field that we have in Counter-Strike that's been explored. Boys, I want to bring in a bit of humor here just quickly. Lucas, I want you to bring up this video. And I think I may have identified, guys, what's wrong with Swedish Counter-Strike. Now, this was from an ES Portal game I was playing. Now, watch this guy's crosshair placement. Tell me if you think he's legit, boys. Tell me what you think about this here, all right? So, coming mid. All right. The cross is locked on the head through the wall. And, so we may have identified what's wrong with Swedish Counter-Strike. There's people fucking smurfing and cheating in ES Portal. These are some Swedes. We lost to a 5-stack. Look at the score. 13 fucking 12. Fucking livid.
He just pre-aimed you. He just pre-aimed you.
Livid. Absolutely livid.
Red. Like you're probably doing that boost like 7 rounds in a row.
There was no boost. There's no boost.
I don't know.
Normally we're only sending one guy top mid on the default. Look at the crosshair lock, man.
I don't know, man. Maybe, maybe just get better. Before I feel like we're going towards like leaving NIP and stuff. I
Oh,
think
we don't have
there's
to leave, man.
no.
We
We're
can say
saying
if you want to leave, we can leave. Where do you want to go? Take us where you want to go.
I'm
Drive
you
the
know
bus.
I'm down with the vibes. You know, I'm just like a vibe surfer.
A
You know
vibe
me.
surfer. All right, like the Silver
Yeah.
Surfer, but on vibes.
I actually
Yeah.
have one thing that I want to bring up here regarding NIP.
There we go.
Because
Let's go.
it's actually regarding sort of the meme that became like, this is about the narratives that can be created by the community and like how weird they are and how they over time become sort of, they just grow. And the idea was that obviously we brought in DJL to fix our T sides because our T sides was poor. I don't know
Okay.
if you were into this.
That was a thing, yeah.
Yeah, this was
That
a
was a
thing.
They
thing.
were pretty bad. They were pretty bad.
Well, it depends on if you like. Yeah, sure. If you zoom into like the last few months of the year,
Yeah.
yes, then I agree. But like, just to sort of add some context to this, I think it was the end of August in Pro League. Me and Mahone was still on the team. We had like a panic meeting because our CT sides were so poor and we could only get rounds on the T side. And then we sort of forgot about our T sides. We had like 2 bad tournaments on our T sides. That becomes the narrative. And then we change, and eventually, like 6 months later, it becomes like, yeah, but they always struggled on the T side. And then it becomes like NIP has always struggled on the T side. And it's like, what? And I just sort of had to get it off my system because it's always when I hear it, it's like, yeah, that's like we were not that good, but like that's not really the case. It's just such a weird thing.
Did DJL improve the T side?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
So-
Are you responsible for this narrative,
fulfilled.
Prof?
I think Maui pushed the DJL T side narrative very hard. But I saw it as well. I think Overpass
Wasn't there a
especially.
quote? There was a quote or something even, I think. At some point.
Overpass especially, but I also remember like casting DJL when he played with Chaos, maybe even back in the day with Pleasant and Relaxed Freddy Frog, and their T sides on Overpass was great. Like he was playing, he was good, and then he came into NIP, coaching NIP, and I'm like, I'm feeling the Chaos vibes here. This is DJ Lamborghini destroying everyone. But it was a thing. But I like I think what we need to do though, like we asked this a couple of people, but then people don't remember. We should put this as like a standard part of every show. Is like, please address some
Petty
misconceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like these misconceptions that you have that people talk about that annoy you to hell. I love that.
We should make it a sponsored thing. Maybe that's the next thing we should bring up.
All right. What if we get a cleaning sponsor and we can call it Coming Clean? Right, and that is, no, you don't like that one, Prof?
Clean?
You have the most sexual mind out of any motherfucker I think I've known in my 30. At this point, our libido should be going down the bin. Our testosterone's starting to go. Our hair's starting to fall out. This is where we should be coming, less worried about the sexual connotations behind everything. And you're still like a 16-year-old schoolboy. Listen to you, mate. Fucking hell. We're all adults here.
You just need to get some vitamin D or in the sun, and then everything's fine. That's how it is. I wanted to talking about these
nuts.
not.
Like this is a new level.
What is happening?
This is when it's tired and it's late and kids are tired, and then you
think that's me right now?
Become delirious. This is like the whole podcast. It's like 10 p.m. We're fucking boomers. Like our
someone
brains
said
are
I'm looking
shutting down.
swollen, so and I think I am. I think I'm looking a bit swollen.
I think he's trying to say swole, like you're.
No, definitely not that. My face is all fucking. Anyway, where are we going, Prof?
I wanted to talk about
Captain
device. Device. We didn't talk about device. We need to talk about
kind of
device
a big deal.
Kind of a big deal because this is actually. I'll start with this simple question: when you signed device, did you think like this is it? We're gonna win a major with this team?
Yes, I really thought so, and especially when we had a really good showing at Flashpoint. And everything leading up to IM Fall, like we sort of fell off a bit in Cologne and Pro League, where we had the panic CT meeting I just talked about. Yeah, But at I Am Fall, it just felt so good with that lineup with Device. Like he's just such a talented player when he really puts in the effort. Like which actually makes the loss versus G2 one of the toughest losses in my career. Right, it hit me really hard losing that match. Even though it's like, yeah, we made playoffs, we had that epic match versus Copenhagen Flames. But if you think about where we were before that tournament, we were the second ranked second in the world, and I think at that point we kind of deserved it. We had beaten a lot of good teams.
I mean, you won what was it? Winter,
Was it
right? Not
fall or
I think.
winter? Winter,
No,
maybe?
winter was
Fall
actually
was what
after
they-
the. It was actually
Yeah.
after, and it was during that tournament. Obviously, the entire issue with Device happened,
That's right.
and we
Fuck.
brought in another young ninja. We brought in
Uzi.
Fusi, exactly, and we managed to beat G2 with Fusi. And we got stomped by Vitality 3-0. Like it was 3-0. A few of the maps were really close. Man, I sort of segued off there, talk about Device.
Yeah.
But yeah, Device was like, I truly believed we would win a major with him. And he is, I don't know how good he is now because he has been a year away from the game. But still at that point, he's the best player I work with.
Shit. That's some high praise right there. You worked with a lot of. You just mentioned like obviously Get Right and Forest and stuff before, but I guess Devices of a bit of different generation, different breed.
What's the difference between like Forest, Get Right, and Device? I guess Forest and Get Right are also very different to each other, but like because this is a big thing to say. Why does Device stand out?
I think Device, because that's the cool thing about having been able to not only worked with a lot of these players, is they all three have so much talent. There's like, especially Get Right and Force in their prime. Like when I played with him in 1.6, I almost felt like, okay, I'm actually good at this game. It was hard to know because he could literally like triple entry. I mean, back in those days, you could literally carry a team. But I think the difference between Get Right and Force and Device is they had the same amount of talent, but Device sort of had the structure in his life, is working really hard. And that made it work for him. And maybe if Force and Get Right were born later, maybe they would have had the same career as Device. But that's how I see it, at least, because they're all of those three is obviously the best ones I worked with. They're all as talented as each other, but Device just had better work ethic.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense because you can see that like how over time more and more of this regimented style and approach to the game and what people are getting out of that. And Device always seemed like he took that serious. Well, Astralis took that serious, right? They were the ones who kind of initiated that blueprint to get to where they were. So okay, so look, we can start to kind of let's do this. Let's float right now. Let's get into Skinionaire. Let's give away a skin. The people at home they're gagging for some freebies right now. So we'll do the quiz. And then I'm sure we're going to have more stuff that's going to crop up that we want to ask Thread about, right? Because it's a long period of time. We're going to jump into talking about Blast stuff. There'll be a bit of NIP conversation. Maybe we can find some questions that will relate to how modern things are. Anyway, I'm rambling right now, Lucas. Let's get into the fucking quiz, all right? Thread, you remember how this works?
Yeah, you asked me a bunch of questions and I answered them.
Yeah, 5 questions, multiple choice, different tiers of skins on the line, and the people at home type BitSkins in chat right now to enter the raffle, I suppose, to put their name in the draw. Now, Prof, the questions tonight. What's the theme?
Theme is NIP.
Okay, good theme.
Makes sense.
It really makes sense here. You've given him hard questions, then I hope you really turn the heat up on this one.
I'd say like kind of average.
Okay, average. Now, if you do need, we do have our resident brain striker standing by. He's kind of like phone a friend. So if you need any help within the 30 seconds you have to answer each question, you can give him a little tap on the shoulder and see if he can contribute here. All right, let's get into Who Wants to Be a Skinionaire, brought to you by BitSkins. Question number 1. There we go, mood lighting. Who has the most maps played for NIP in CSGO? 1,627 maps played. Is it A, Get Right, B, Forest, or C, Rez?
It's either Forest or Res. 2015 2015 to 2012. So that's 5 years.
I mean, surely it's
Wow.
got to be.
Gotta be Forest,
Yeah,
right?
it's got to be
gotta be
Forest. Yeah, it's got to be
then,
Forest.
right?
But it feels like a trick questions where it's like you think it's Forest, but I'm gonna say Forest. It feels.
If it is a trick, Prof, you're a fucking devious
Not
individual
that
here.
long that he left, so I feel like that the early stages must have made up for res in the late stages, right?
And he leave like 3 years ago already.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a fair amount, yeah, sure.
But he was there for a long time. So we've locked in B Forest, and the correct answer is B Forest. All right, a safe one that felt like a trap.
Was
I
it
think
close at
Rez
least,
has
Prof?
like over 1,000, but it's not that close. I don't think so.
Okay, really.
All right, let's get into question number 2. DJO and Hampus played together in which team? The Jalapenos, Tricked, or Godsent?
Well, it's not Tricked. I'm gonna say Yapolino.
All right, and we're going to lock it in. That's A, the big A, and the correct answer is A. All right, 2 from 2. Feeding through it now, picking up some momentum, turning the bend into question.
Not too hard, right?
No, not so far.
That usually he's been putting some real fucked up questions in lately, Threat. So you've gotten lucky this time. Question number 3. Which one of these former NIP players didn't join Dignitas? Lecro, Twist, or Exist?
Twist.
Bang. Locking it in. B, Twist. Correct answer is ding. Twist.
Hey.
All right. Yeah, fuck.
Because I was coaching at that time, so it would have been really weird if I didn't know it.
Just transferred. All right, yeah, he's gone. All right, question 4. Oh, hold up. Halvor in the chat. He did play for us, though, in one tournament.
That
Dun,
doesn't
dun,
count.
dun.
That
Okay, all
doesn't
right.
count.
All
That
right,
doesn't
all right.
count.
Question 4. Whose team is currently higher ranked? Whose team is currently highest ranked? Number 37. Norks, FaZes, or ZTRs?
I'm gonna say FaZes.
He's in Sangal, right?
Yeah, I would
Norks
agree
in
with
Exactly, because
Apex.
they had like a decent stint at the Rio Major.
They
the
had some
Well,
good
Well,
games.
they made it to the RMR, and
Yeah,
they
well,
did
yeah.
pretty well there.
4
too.
months ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but now are you
he's-
talking him out of
he's
it?
about-
But it's still
he's
like
throwing you
Apex
off
and
now.
Godsent. They
I'm-
have. Well, I'm still gonna guess Sangal. Like out of those 3,
All right.
I think that is the best guess.
All right, locking in FaZe
And
with
this
Sangal.
is a tough one because
I think Apex didn't do super well recently, so I think it's got to be Sungal.
Correct answer is
Oh,
It is Apex, really.
okay.
Nork
What
over
rank are they?
with
Almost,
Apex.
almost in
Ah.
the top 30. Let's go.
Yeah, I have to check immediately.
Well, they
They
added
actually won some games.
They added the
Yeah.
new boy Kixon, right? We spoke about him. I was watching some of their games.
It's
So
47 for Sungal,
The Macedonian.
37 for Apex. Okay.
North Macedonian. Sorry to all of the Greeks.
I don't that part of the world. I'm not going to apologize. I don't know what's going on half the time anyway. Europe, it's fucking.
Lucas
It's
in
a
the
small
bottom.
place. Europe's a small place. Let's not pretend it's big. Let's not. As long as we don't
European
include.
player. Just call them all European players.
They're all
That's-
Europeans. You're all
Yes.
fucking Europeans to me. All right. Question number 5. To win their last notable trophies, NIP beat who in the final? Was it Ensign SK, Ents and FaZe, or Vitality and Fnatic? Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
well, if you're counting
okay.
I Am Fall, it's Ents and then it's FaZe because FaZe is the one in Oakland, obviously.
Those are
so
the 2
I'm-
tournaments. So I
Okay.
can
Yes.
confirm.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say Ents and FaZe.
All right. We're locking in B. And there's some confidence behind this one. Correct answer is B. All right.
I mean,
we'll go-
I coached them in the FaZe final, so
there you go.
you know this.
There you go. We got 4 out of 5. Not too bad. And one lucky winner at home will be taking home a $15 skin. So, Lucas, draw the winner, put it in TeamSpeak. Let me mispronounce it. It's half the fun.
You're like a
Coca-
Starbucks. You're like a Starbucks barista, man. At this point.
Coca-Cola Bunny. Did I get that one right? Coca-Cola
Okay.
Bunny? That was pretty easy.
That
Yeah, I
was
know,
pretty
but I
easy.
could have been like cacao. You know, I could have definitely stumbled over. I could have made a
Starbucks
thing
would
out
have
of it.
fucked it up. I can tell you that.
So, well, we got it. We've got it. All right, our people are going to reach out to your people, and we'll get you the skin.
Are we asking Threat about his plans?
Well,
for the
right now we're
future?
going to go to an ad break, Prof, because we're
Oh,
over an hour into the
okay.
show, and
Goodbye.
Lucas is going, hey,
Sorry
run
for
some fucking ads, Chad. Run the fucking ads, man. Run the fucking ads. Run the ads, Lucas. Let's go.
The Xtrfy M42 RGB, what a fun mouse with 5 colorways, lightweight frame at just 59 grams with the swappable backplate to suit your grip style, the sensor, the easy core, the smooth skates, and driverless control for RGB and DPI is why you should check out the M42 RGB down below.
Finally, I found what I was looking for. Now that my search is over, it's gonna be a tough choice. But fortunately, no need to choose. When you can just have them all. Buy and sell skins on BitSkins.com.
Bet. Your bet, your game.
And you wouldn't know it, but Prof and Threat both went for a quick little break and both returned with plenty of goddamn time. So thank you for bearing with us through the ad break. Thank you for hanging out. And right now, Threat, well, we got some important business here to tie off. We got to ask about what the future holds for you, right? Because we spoke about your time at NIP. We spoke about some of the different trials and tribulations that you went through. But now you're back on the market. And I believe that here it is. You, as part of when you departed, you implied that you were looking to get back into coaching, saying that he has missed working closely with a team and having a more direct impact. So, what does the future for Threat have on the horizon?
Okay, so first regarding that comment itself, it was actually one of the reasons I decided to step down, and it was sort of a mutual thing. Whereas sort of from August, September, when we brought Alexi in, the idea was that I was supposed to move further away from the teams and have more sort of a bird's eye view over them, work that way. And sort of I was a bit behind this, but eventually I started disagreeing with this, and that eventually led to what happened. And so it doesn't necessarily to be like I have to be the head coach. But I do think that's where I will have the most impact. And I really miss it to help the teams. And it's one thing that actually triggered this was the addition of Anubis in the map pool. And it just frustrates me still that I can't deep dive into it and see that work put into a tournament and it works, right? That's like the best feeling I know.
I guess if people don't really know too much about your history as an in-game leader or a coach, a lot of the things that you were praised for was well thought out, mega geeky, perfect executes, right? All the mollies would land, the smokes would be great, the flashes would be there, and when a new map comes out, that's the stuff that's exciting, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's going back to that as well. That's a very good point, because I think back to the narrative parts. I think throughout my career, those are the things that stand out. You will remember the cobbled smokes or my Molotov.
Yeah,
right. So
exactly. Was the only thing that was
Team Acer. Team Acer.
Team Acer. Yeah, the Molotov thing, which is funny because I literally call the Molotov strat in spawn.
Oh,
yeah,
shit. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not I literally said you Molotov MBK, you Molotov quad, you Molotov forklift from door. You take left side, I take right side. They're gonna stack A or something. I said it like that, and then it became sort of that throughout my entire career. And I do like nerdy executes. I do think nerdy executes has a role in the game, but my preferred style, or not my preferred style, the way I truly believe you have to play CS is more. I don't know if it's boring, but the default heavy style. Because even if you remember back to the 2016 NIP, you have the meme about you don't pick cash versus us. Exist said it because we love playing cash, we love playing super slow, and you could see what we did in demos. We took mid control and we defaulted, and people still couldn't stop us, right? Because that's always been my preferred style. With the sort of executes being more of a you have to use them with precision like a surgeon. Like you have to time it perfectly, because otherwise you look like a fool. You will execute B on overpass, and everyone
Two
just dies
Molotovs
in a
come down
second.
and
Yeah,
Yeah.
they know where you're coming, right? You just look stupid.
Yeah, I think
Um,
like the team, just for viewers that haven't been around, it was like 2014, 2015 when the Team Acer team was playing. That was like your last competitive team as a player, right? In
Yeah, and
CSGO.
I have to add to this, and this is not like bragging. It's rather that, well, people just don't try new things, because at this point, people won't believe it still when I say this. At that point in the game, they were like, people didn't really use Molotovs. They were, and buying them on an anti-eco was in like, why would you waste so much money on this like super funky grenade on an anti-eco? People really thought that, and it's like crazy when you think about it today, right?
Hmm.
It is like $400. It's like $100 more than a smoke, right? So that was just crazy that people like, oh, they bought 5 Molotovs on an anti-eco. They're like, you're crazy. And today it's like, this is the most standard thing ever, right?
And the most safe thing to do. But yeah, I think your style for like newer viewers would be most similar to like big, and not even big today, like big when they didn't have that many great players, like when they still had like maybe like a cadiaN and maybe a Legia even coming in, like that kind of a team that was like super nerdy, had all these like super smart things, figured out that not the best players available, because you're the third best Swedish team, right? So you didn't really have any of the Fnatic or NIP guys. It was just like kind of the leftovers, some of the older players and some of the newcomers that I don't think anyone really broke through. I don't know who you had in the team who was like,
it was like
really
Crystal
good.
at the time.
Crystal, Sneal,
Yeah.
and Nico, the Swedish Nico. There's a lot of
This is like
Nikos.
1 point. That's like
Yeah,
really
1.6,
1.6
lineup,
product,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. And I mean, I still actually have one, the jersey of that team Lions on my wall in another room, because that was like one of the teams that meant the most to me, because I think that's where I learned the skill of making the most out of the players we had. Right.
Well, that was never going to work because the Famous sucked for Paul's Neil, right? So yeah, it was never going to work.
No, I mean, I missed the burst Famas so much from 1.6G. It was so nice. But actually, coming back to the point of like being similar to Big, like I would definitely agree with you up to my second stint, because then the game had changed so much, and I do think I evolved as a coach during that time as well, where teams anti-strat so much and look at each other, you like just making a very funky execute or something too nerdy, because people will steal it after the first time you use it.
Yeah.
It's like, then that's sort of what I mean with, like, you have to look at the effort you put in over a lot of tournaments. So like, if you have a good execute, you really need to use it at the most important time in the tournament for it to make any sense whatsoever, right? I mean, it still kind of works. We had a lot of funky executes at IM Fall, because that was just when you could start dropping grenades, right?
Yes.
But other than that, it's so much more based around the economy now as well, and that's something I do still feel like a lot of teams don't master, and the CIS teams outperforms the other teams so hard in that area.
I'm curious about, you mentioned something, about your departure, obviously, that kind of like a disagreement leading to you kind of like taking a step back and then eventually leaving. You care to speak a little bit more on that? What exactly was it that you didn't like about the direction of the team?
Well, it's just a very simple answer. I just thought I should have more direct impact with the team. And the other side of that, which I understand, is then there will be too many chefs in the kitchen. Right, especially when you brought in Alexa B, I actually struggled to finding my place. Even though I've always wanted an IGL that takes a lot of space. Maybe I do take too much space in some sense. I don't know. But we just couldn't find a good fit, and that was sort of the part we disagreed on, and it's absolutely didn't end on bad terms.
So looking at the future, do you have anything in the works right now? Because you look at the teams like Heroic have Exist, G2, they've been making some statements recently that they're staying with Swanee. They don't want to kind of ruin what they have at the moment. FaZe with Raban. Liquid have Daps. Outsiders have Dastan. Plus, I don't think you speak Russian. So that could be a bit of a problem. Same with Furia. Mouse, they've got their coach locked on in. Navi's another. Vitality, they're pretty secure in their position. So, where may we see threat in the future? Are there any options out there at the moment?
I mean, I've had a few discussions with some orgs, but I haven't really, it hasn't materialized. In some ways, I do want to wait until I find something I really want this time. Because sure, like I've been back and forth, like, do I want to coach? I stop coaching, I do something else, and I start coaching, and then I stopped again. But the thing is, I've only coached, I've only been in Swedish team, I've only been in NIP. And I just really want to find the best fit, because I do truly believe I could have a big impact if I get a really good lineup. And it would be very nice if I could manage to get a major before I end my career finally, because I haven't managed that. I've been close a few times. So that's sort of what I'm waiting and see. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. Then I will. Find something else.
I'm gonna throw this out there. We'll get the billboards up there. We'll get the notice board up so everyone can read. Let's say that you don't have anything secured by the time that the Blast Paris Major rolls around. Would you want to go jump on a Blast desk and speak from your position of being a recently moved on coach from NIP and talk with all your insider knowledge at the major about all the Counter-Strike things? Would that interest you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something I really want to stay relevant in whatever way I can, and just doing something like this makes me like show that I still care, and I still watch all the games. I'm still up to date with like the current meta and everything, because I know that can be a worry if someone's been on a break for a very long time, because thing changes so fast, especially if you're the coach and you really have to know the nitty-gritty on like all of the maps, right? So yeah, any way I can stay relevant is just something I would want to do. But when it comes to like actually joining like a head coach position, I mean, I'd rather, if I don't find the thing I really want, then that's the way it is, right? Because at this point, it's either that or I don't think I will get back to it.
Okay. When you made that decision, right? That was at the time where G2 just released their coach, or at least the Xtrfy decided to step down, right? You must have thought like, what if they come to me and ask me?
Yeah, of course I did. But it's also this thing where they finally win a tournament. I would also be like, are you really gonna change this now? I mean, if they have a lot of more bad tournaments, I go to the Paris Major, working at the desk, which had then they lose at that major and then they ask. That would make more sense to me, actually.
Fair enough. Well, that would be a team that's a good lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, they have a realistic lineup right now. I mean, it seems like Hooks is really doing a really good job. He's the only one I don't have that much data on, but experiencing playing Copenhagen Flames, especially the match with them versus
major, right?
The major. Man, it's fun. I can't watch the VOD in that match because it's like PTSD or something. It's horrible. I think I drank like 5 liters of water during the last Ancient map. Because there was like an admin who just kept giving me water, and like I couldn't say anything, and I just had to find something to do because I literally couldn't clap my hands. And the thing I could do was drink water. They allowed me to drink water, right? I just kept drinking water.
Give away information, man.
Yeah, but that was not a signal to go B or something.
One swig go A, 2 swigs go B.
Yeah.
If he gurgles the water, they're on eco.
If you piss your pants, save the gun. Nice. Oh god, good. It's worth it for the W. One quick question.
Yes.
Would you rather build a team from scratch or join an existing team?
I can't choose any of this. It just completely depends on the players, because I don't really prefer any of those. Like in some ways, maybe building a new team is more interesting because then I can have more impact directly. But it's also very nice to have a system in place and everything. It's a lot of pros and cons with both.
Okay.
Now we have some like new organizations potentially looking. TSM has been being out there saying that they're
when they're sponsored by FTX.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
whatever
fucked.
the fuck. I mean,
They're
who
fucked,
knows?
Striker. Don't worry about them, mate. Everyone's gone under. All the crypto sponsorships are gone. We're all screwed. All of our careers are done. It's all done. This is our last year. Doom and gloom. I'm joking, everybody. But yeah, but look, but then it becomes who's he going to pick? Who are you going to pick from at the moment to make a team from? Like there's so many qualms in that regard at the moment as well. Now let's jump into some of this Blast stuff. All right, I want to kick off with the M1 moment. We've selected the cadiaN clutch, I believe it was. Prof, is that correct for the M1 moment?
That is correct. I'm pretty sure.
Now we're going to watch this with everybody here, but as we know, cadiaN's he's loved to pull off a couple of mental clutches in his time, and this one here is just another where it's such a late round situation and
I love
kill
this
after
video,
kill.
by the way.
Sorry?
I really like the view of like where you see the player, you know?
Oh yeah, and this is great. Like we've spoken about this a couple times on the show before. I know I've mentioned it a bunch. This is kind of not this view exactly, but the view from behind the players, getting to see their arm move. This is how it used to be, like an old school Lance, right? Where you would
just
stand behind,
and
so you could see how intense it was. And this camera gives you that kind of feeling here. But this clutch, the 1v5 on Nuke, it was like fucking mental. This basically changed the tide of Nuke, and they ended up taking it to 3 maps, but still faltered there. But this is just what cadiaN seems to be of the elite in these type of clutch rounds, right? And we can talk about the context, the pressure of the Blast group stage, whatever. It's not necessarily like a stage game or anything, but it's more the way that he just like kind of surges forward in these clutch. The clear on Spinx in the vent, like when there's like fucking 11 seconds left or whatever it is, like that's fucking crazy. Like how he just like seeks that out, finds that kill. It's a fun round to watch. Like this is Counter-Strike, This is what it's about. It's a very impressive clutch.
Yeah, really liked it.
Anyone else have any other words? Just do the thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's so hard when you've been a coach to like only look for mistakes, and it's like they see like, why would Magus peak ramp there? But at the same time, you have to punish all of these tiny mistakes to make that happen, and it's just so impressive.
And it's also like 12 seconds, like a lot of the time, like 95% of the time, probably that's not a mistake. You just want him to not to have the up. You just want to catch him out, right? But obviously,
Yeah, the ramp shot's huge. What's that?
Yeah, especially the event one. Like if you're on site with the bomb, 99% of every player would okay, I have to plant, I have to fake plant or something. I have time for one fake plant. I wouldn't think I have time to go for a shot into vents with the op. Right? That's
I'm pretty sure
impressive.
that's one of the things that you're holding the angle as the vent player is like, but he's not actually gonna peak. You don't really think he's gonna peak, right? Yeah. But he peaks, he's like, oh fuck, he did peak, man. So then you just get wrecked, and that's it.
All right.
Now, great clutch. Yeah. Contender for highlight of the year, right there.
We always seem to have him early in the year. Remember that Chris J clutch on Train? Like this is years ago now. I think it was like the Ice 1v5 Challenge or whatever. Yeah, all these type of crazy rounds seem like they come early in the year. Maybe everyone's still got a bit of sleep in their eyes like me. They're a bit tired getting out the break.
I mean, Rops and Monasi from last year were both like it was Katowice and group stage.
Events,
first 2 events as well.
Yeah.
The cadiaN 1v4 in Pro League as well, right?
Well, was first or second season in the year.
Second season, I think.
Okay, so that was a little bit later. Now let's jump into talking a bit about Blast now, because we got Blast to talk about, and then we can also use this to kind of preview our expectations for Katowice, which is coming up very, very soon. So Striker, for you so far with the results, and today we've had a couple more teams lock themselves in for the arena event for Blast, but who's been the standouts? And not necessarily just by the results, but who's been like, yeah, okay, these guys are delivering to above my expectations coming out of the break. Is there any names sticking out?
I'd say Vitality, and specifically Spinx. I think he's been kind of like I'm not going to say revelation. Obviously, we know what Spinx is capable of, but he just hasn't been showing it so much with Vitality. I had him in my fantasy, so I was just very keen on watching him, and he's been one of the best players of the tournament. Obviously, Blast groups, blah blah blah. Like it's not the most there's not the most pressure. It's not the most prestigious tournament, and it's never like historically Blast groups haven't been particularly good at predicting future success. If you look at teams like Big, who have done well at those, OG have done well at those. Obviously teams don't particularly do super well outside of that. But still, it was a good sign for me that Spinx is finding some form again, because I've been looking out for that for a while. We just haven't seen it so much.
He's the question mark, right? Like he's the one that last year he wasn't performing up to the level that we know was possible with Ents, and maybe it was just about I guess working into the groove. But this is good, right? And just to summarize the results quickly, they played Astralis in the opener. And they're able to deal with that bit of a historic matchup there with Device back in the server with Glaive and Zip going up against Dupree and Megas. That was a 2-mapper. Vertigo and Overpass, and then they took care of business against EG, which is what you want to see, right? Like if you want to have some confidence in Vitality, one of the last things you want to see is a bit of a foot fault against EG. If I can slap them out of the server 16-1 on Inferno and 16-11 on Overpass. And then they had that series against Heroic yesterday that did go the distance. It was 3 maps. But Heroic were coming into this. And again, this is a very uncertain moment in Counter-Strike. We have a lot of teams who are in the contender column, but Heroic were one of the names towards the end of last year that were looking good. So this spree of results, Spinx playing well, Zywo's still playing well. This looks good for Vitality here. How do you feel about Vitality threat? Because I think last year, a lot of the summary was they're not living up to their full potential.
Yeah, it's weird because their highest level is very high, but there's just something off with that team. It's even when they win like they do now. I don't know if you guys get the same feeling, but it's like it doesn't feel as consistent. It feels like there's always a bit of randomness to their game, and it always looks a little bit off. And they usually win a lot by just individual performances. I don't know. I'm not convinced by that lineup yet, to be honest.
Okay. What's it missing, or what needs to change?
It looks like it's mostly communication, to be honest. Because they have the players, they have the coach, and I mean they have players who have played like in very rigid systems, so they understand the game. You can just clearly see that there's a lot of like small mid-round mistakes, and they get annoyed with each other, and it's like this shouldn't have happened, which is very characteristic for a team of that caliber.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I still I feel uncomfortable watching those like mic'd up moments from Vitality still, even from this tournament. It feels so fucking chaotic in terms of like everyone's just yelling something, like repeating comms. It's like the golden days of like NA, you know. It's like beep, 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 beep,
English
beep,
will do that
like,
to you, man.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And I don't know. I guess people get used to it, and like everyone, when you're in the zone, you kind of, you know, separate this and that, and you know what you need to hear, what you don't need to hear. But I still feel like it's a bit all over the place in that regard. And like the Heroic Vitality game was very much a hot and cold game in terms of Heroic, not really there. And then everyone from Vitality, especially Zayu, just got everything that they needed and a bit more sometimes.
I think I have a really good example. Like if you compare Vitality to let's say Navi in like on Inferno, if they get some poor trades, you can see how cohesive they are with, we're going to save immediately because it's early in the match and we have bad economy, and there's no hesitation, they just save immediately. Well, like a lot of viewers complain about this because it makes it really boring, but it's the right way to play, and you wouldn't see that from Vitality, right? It's always something in between, like someone's saving and like someone's pushing, and just the speed of which other teams like Navi and a Heroic team they beat, actually, it just seems so more cohesive when they play.
Okay, so their decision making in certain situations is not as proficient as it could be to enable them to. Okay, yeah, and I think like we definitely see some of the calls where things kind of just fall apart with them here, but. You know, I asked Striker for Promise, and he was with Promise. So I think maybe especially where I had Vitality coming into this year, they were one of my more like cusp teams to the teams who felt like more of a known quantity. I think at the moment, though, for me, Counter-Strike, when we get to the big events, every game is going to be like an any given Sunday type matchup. Like I'm not looking for which team is going to establish like a dynasty or which team is going to go on consistent W's at the moment, because I feel that we're in such a period where there's so many teams that could strike while the iron is hot, right? Like G2 have continued their success. They just beat Navi again, and now they're locked in for the arena as well. That would be another team that I'm sure a lot of us here would put in the highlight column. But do they look more complete to you, G2, if we were to say they're a highlight as well? Do they look more complete to you than a Vitality at the moment?
It's hard to tell because Navi hasn't looked as impressive as it did last year. And it's so early because we haven't seen Navi play against the other teams, so we don't know how hot Navi is, right? And I think it was one map Inferno where G2 almost lost to Navi as well, so things could have gone wrong there. So it's very hard to tell. They're obviously they look the hottest in this tournament thus far.
Okay, let me try this then, Prof. I'm going to throw this one your way because Threat's bang on here. we haven't seen a bunch of non-partner Blast teams play. We haven't even seen Blast teams like into Cross yet. We will see a bit more of that as the format continues here. But one of the problems we have is this isn't a tournament that has a crescendo in a final. So we're going to miss a lot of like, this guy beat this guy, then these guys beat these guys. Like it's a bit harder for us to measure.
We're not seeing G2 or Vitality at all anymore.
So what are we measuring? What should we and the viewers, or I guess for our conversation point, how should we be grading what we've seen? Should we just be looking at, okay, this guy's in good form and this is likely going to carry into Katowice this next week? This team looks this. What are we looking at? Metrics?
I think we can look at some individual form, but we also need to take it like case by case. For example, like you look at Heroic, you look how they played. Like when you look at their ratings and shit, like they're great because they smurfed on, like they lost to EG, but it was like a very close game, and then they destroyed them. Then also like Astralis destroyed them on 2 maps, lost 1 map, right? And then they lost to Vitality in a game where you saw that they didn't really show up. And so what does this mean? Are Heroic in trouble? Like, I don't think so, right? Especially this early, this result and this tournament it's not the end of the world, right? To not win the group or anything. And they still have decent chances. I don't know how the group bracket looks. I didn't look after it's finished, but
we're playing the winner.
I've got it here.
Bit on Liquid.
Big and Liquid. So that's pretty okay. Like I believe they win that, and then what are we talking about? There's no reason to worry about anything about Heroic,
exactly, right? Yeah.
So it depends, but then you can look at someone like Liquid and how they played, and they like losing to a team like OG, just some of the like Yakindar completely missing on a map, and then OC not really delivering, and then you're like, okay, that's not great, but they also probably started practicing pretty late. Like I think they went on to boot camp like just a couple of days before the tournament started. I remember like after the award show, I think I opened Instagram and I saw Daps flying. So that was like the 15th. So they're not, fully ready, and they're going to be more ready for Katowice than they were here. So I think you can say like Vitality definitely that's some promise, right? Considering how they were last year, especially Spinx, because he was the big question mark. G2 continuing, that's more or less the same. Navi, we know they weren't going to be great here. The Blade interview was pretty good. People can look it up. And then
this is where he said he'd rather or would have liked to have kept playing with SDY and MPL, right?
SDY and MPL, yeah. That's
for me.
Yeah.
And he also spoke a bit about roles and stuff, so we can talk about Navi in a bit. I think on the other side, there are 2 teams that had like so far that we finished the first half of the group. There are 2 teams that have no players above a 1.0 rating. Do you want to guess which ones?
Big in complexity.
EG and complexity.
Oh, okay. I thought Wiz was above 1 point. Oh, maybe I didn't check his
so it's like
stats.
Nothing new there, right? I think for the most part, it's
America,
hard.
Man.
It's hard to see like to bring any big conclusions out of it so far. Like if we get some bigger upsets or like weird results in the bracket gauntlet or whatever, then okay. But so far it's kind of more or less as expected. Like NIP also kind of in the dumps. I didn't really watch their games, not gonna lie, the first week at all. But I guess like looking at individuals like Hetrick would be a thing and see how he can perform.
But now that's kind of even in the bin because Hampus is out now. Like, I know we spoke about config, and that at least is a silver lining. They get someone who can frag, but it's like it just feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right? So for NIP,
and config's not going to play at this event because he can't, obviously, as we figured out.
Imagine if he actually did end up playing.
Imagine if he played, that would be hilarious.
That would be so funny, actually.
But it's super funny because now he's actually signed for NIP and he still can't play because I don't want to talk about that, but that was, in my opinion, like super mishandled by Blast. Like I think they really fucked up on that one.
They're kind of out of the news cycle. It's because we aren't going to spend too much time talking about it. So they kind of dodged the news cycle on the potty here.
Yeah.
I mean, regarding NIP, I mean, if we want to move along the conversation, I was kind of trying to focus on Hetrick mainly, just because obviously he's the main guy coming in. He had a really good map against Navi. That was like the only map where he really stood out. Other than that, he just kind of seems like the typical passive opper that just gets things done essentially, but doesn't really necessarily have like super highlight moments or anything like that. That's pretty much how he looked to me. He seemed like positionally he was decent. He was making mistakes like over peeking into situations and things like that, considering his inexperience. So that's kind of like one thing that I was paying attention to the most. He just hasn't been amazing. He hasn't been bad. Just kind of like middle of the road so far for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you if you look at him before this is sort of the player NIP expected, because
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was a very passive opera in Navi Junior. It was like the opposite to m0NESY.
Does that make sense? Do you think Threat, with the fact they have like Brolin and Rez and now Config, who are pretty plucky and aggressive riflers, and would you like to balance that out with an AWPer who's not going to take as many risks?
Well, I think first of all, it's hard to be too picky, where it's like, yeah, we need a super good AWPer and it has to be this precise style. But if you actually look back at it, like Device worked great with the team, and he's obviously very passive, right? So I don't necessarily think that matters too much. But I don't know, maybe they would have needed a more explosive m0NESY AWPer.
It's just like it's because I think when we think of players, we think of like their peak moments and when they're getting up to nonsense, right? And like I think for some of them, like Brolin's an example, who I know that he's not only just this, but some of his best moments were during like the Org and Krieg era, where he could just like run around an aim map, and that was like, back then one of his biggest strengths, just being at a headshot, right? So I kind of couple that and bring that into like, I know the game's still always evolving and stuff, but seeing him in those type of positions, then I thought, okay, well, is there a lot of overlap with like Rez, Hampus, and Brolin all wanting to go for like opening plays? Like you think about Vertigo taking like yellow control, looking for those type of jewels. I can see all of them wanting to get up to those type of moves. But then if you had an aggressive, or I guess that wouldn't, it's not the same type of fight really. I don't know. It just feels like they have a lot of elements that like to get stuck in.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that, I guess it's not a bad thing. Some teams struggle to find anybody who wants to get stuck in. So the fact they have quite a few people who are like, fuck it, throw a flash, I'm running in. Maybe that's a positive sign.
Yeah, to be fair, like it's very difficult to, like, we can't predict anything about an IP at this point. Like it's just everything's gonna be completely different because of Config. Like as you say, like he's much more explosive. As much as him and Hampus are kind of, I said it in a chat like just after the change, they're kind of cut out of the same cloth, but then again, they're not exactly the same type of player. Like Config will just hold W, and he will just like fight to the death essentially. Yes. Hampus can be that, but he's much more balanced in that way, where especially in his like latest role in an IP, where he was much more on the lurky side rather than being like a hard entry or anything along the lines. So definitely there's going to have to be some changes in the setup that Navi or NIP are using at the moment. And so like who the hell knows what kind of an IP will show up in Katowice.
Well, this might be good for Alexi in the sense that they're not going to have too much time to like have a lot of predetermined stuff. So this is where he gets to do a bit more like micromanaging and moving of the pieces while calling. And some in-game leaders like are better like that, where things are a bit more on the fly and they get to. But I don't know. I don't know what suits Alexi best or where he finds himself calling. It's just another difficult position to find themselves as a team, right?
I mean, I do kind of like what this could potentially mean for Brolin, because I think there was something that I talked to Kalk about actually in the interview that I did with him, where I thought he just hasn't really shown so much so far. Like we expected Brolin to be a really big signing for NIP, Sweden's best player, all of that, that he was being held as, but like nothing really changed, in NIP during that time. And of course you can talk about how like, because of the turbulence and a lot of the changes, like he didn't really get the chance to shine. But that could be something that could actually help out Brolin, just because there's going to be a little bit less pressure on him to be the aggressive piece, and maybe using Config to be the front guy, and Brolin could be like the second guy and a little bit more along with Rez, like somewhere in the pack, whatever like that. I could see that being a bit more freeing for Brolin specifically, and unlocking him in that team. So I'm just curious how they will set the team up, and how quickly even they will be able to, because obviously Katowice is in like a week's time.
Yeah, they probably don't even know how they're going to do that yet, right? They're probably going to work that out very soon. Now, I want to play this through my mic here just quickly, and then just talk about some heroic stuff. Let me see if this is the right one here.
That's right.
Now, I don't know if people caught Config do it. Caught cadiaN doing that. There was also like there's also a Twitch clip from like a couple years ago of a guy on Cobble like doing a similar type of spiel. But the long story short here is like, hey, I think he's trying to get his team to communicate a bit more, because if they're such a dynamic team, right? And Counter-Strike really is about, yeah, I'm flashed, I'm peeking now, I've got the left, yeah, cover me, I'm throwing the smoke. Like the level of details and communication, especially with a team like Heroic, which is very like proactive, reactive, all of the actives, right? We know that if their comms and players aren't taking the initiatives and communicating what they're doing, I can see how that can really like hamper their style as a team, right? Like, because you look at how quick, like cadiaN makes a call and you have to trust it in that moment. He's made that call off of like a very specific timing. And if anybody hesitates, right, that's where it's fucked. Like things can fall apart. I don't know if people watch the Game and Glory documentary little episode that ESL put out, but there's one round in a matchup they were talking about as part of that Furia comeback where cadiaN made a call to like rotate back to A to the open bomb site. And instead Tessa started walking down B lane and he got killed and dropped the bomb. And that's like an example of, hey, like if somebody just has a brain fade in a moment in a heroic game, that can just lose you the round right there. So I don't know that this feels like a no-brainer. I feel like I'm giving you an underarm here, like because I'm trying to highlight communication and heroic. What do you think their biggest strength / weakness is as far as it pertains to their play style?
I think what heroic has, and I think cadiaN said this in an interview a while back, where they have this thing like even if they have a bad plan, they fully commit to it, and that's just very annoying to play against. I mean, a classic heroic thing would be they're playing seed overpass. There's a trade, and they just immediately over rotate to A and play aggressive A, like plays like that, and they're very fast about it. And if someone makes that call, they don't hesitate. They just do it immediately. And I think that's also the bad side with them, because sometimes, I mean, it's better if the plan is actually good, you know. And sometimes they overdo it. I mean, I've seen a few times they could get like the entry and still someone makes the call and it's like, yeah, but we said we agreed to commit to all the calls, when obviously it's a bad call to make an aggressive play or something. Now I might be oversimplifying it a bit, but that's sort of where I feel where they're at. But just to make things clear, though, it's much better to commit to all plans and have bad plans than not commit to them and have good plans. But I mean, in a perfect world, you would have both.
Do you guys think it's hard for a team like Heroic, though, who want to continue to be like the one setting the tempo, like playing that heads up Counter-Strike, that you can run out of ideas, right? Like, because they're doing so many different things, and if one or two people have a bit of an off day coming into the office with those ideas, like that shared responsibility, it quickly, excuse me, fucking hell, yawning, sneezing, puffy, it's everything here tonight. Maybe I'm dying. But yeah, it all kind of can fall apart quite quickly if some of the links are missing. So I guess that then builds back into the nature of Heroic and this like brotherhood they built and all this trust. I'm going down all of this culture side of the team again. But it's really important to these boys. I think like they're not a team that can just they're not just sweet.
Why are you so just like going off on Heroic so hard right now?
I watched the thing today.
What inspired you?
I didn't watch the Game and Glory thing when it initially came out. I wanted to save it so it was like fresh on my mind. If I did both, I did Talk and Counter earlier, and now I'm doing this one. So if it came up, I wanted to have it fresh and ready in case there's any themes. And those themes, obviously, because there was a lot of Heroic stuff in there, really stuck with me. And I was thinking about how right now it would impact their gameplay, and they obviously lost to Vitality, right? And there's clear signs that cadiaN trying to get them to talk a bit more. So I'm just trying to,
but do you think
tie the thread
that you linked or played?
Yes,
he's speaking in English. Do you think that was like serious, or I'm pretty sure they won the round before that, and then
I think he was like 3-0 against EG.
I think he was making fun of EG. Honestly,
I don't think he was making fun of EG. I think he was doing it for like a mood thing. You think that was part of his banter with Hexed?
I mean, it could also be, you know, but
that was my idea, but maybe I was wrong. Yeah,
but it did look like he's just like trying to bring the team up, and that's it. You know, he's not like actually telling them anything like important. You know, it's just like being cadiaN and being a leader, you know, and just like doing anything he can to get the energy up, you know. So I didn't really look like I didn't think much of it.
All right, maybe I'm reading too much into it.
And I have to add something positive here on Heroic. Things here when we're talking about Heroic, it's like they seem like they're a team that adapts to their problems. So there might be teams they found this culture, we're always going to be aggressive, and then they stick to that no matter what, even if they start losing, because that is their culture. I think a good example of this is Furia. They are very stubborn, like insanely stubborn with some of the things. And it can really backfire. I mean, we had a match versus them on Antwerp Major in the group stage. were CT on Nuke. I think we actually ended up being 13-0 up, because like the literally only thing we did was, okay, we block door with everything you have every round. Like it's that simple, because their plan is like, yeah, we have to be aggressive door. It doesn't matter. We won't stop. We are Furia. We will do this. Like, it's sort of felt like you're playing that. It's like, yeah, but if we throw 5 HCs, there's every round, like it's impossible. Like, because you will just take, damage, and it doesn't matter how much you believe in your play style if you take 100 damage. And that's an example of a team. I think Furia has improved in that regard, but I think Heroic is really good in that, where they have their style and you can see like, oh, this is Heroic, but they will adapt, which probably can make them even more scary this next year.
It became a meme when we were casting for a while there that Furia just don't use outside on Nuke, that everything is like so like lobby centric. But yeah, they'll get there eventually. They'll catch up with the meta. Don't you worry. Well, maybe they won't.
What do we think about FaZe?
This is a hard one to talk about, right?
Through the group stage with the tag.
This is the thing of why it's like, okay, well, FaZe have come in good form with individuals. Brokey's playing well, Twister's playing well, right? Like that's the thing. That's all I'm looking at here, and it's just cadiaN with the stand-in buff again. So that's a cadiaN.
Yep.
I'm tired, boys. It's been a long day with this fucking dryer, and I ordered the wrong dryer. So don't even worry about
Everything's fucked, man.
Still falling apart.
Yeah,
the stand-in buff.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Nothing much to talk about there. Like Rain is coming back for Katowice from everything we see, so that's nice. Potentially Robban as well. I don't know about that. So they're probably going to be in full force there. And I guess if we're swapping to Katowice, they are still, I would say, the favorites alongside like Heroic.
Okay.
I would say.
What about
still.
G2?
I guess G2 is also there.
I have a really horrible feeling about G2. You remember that 10-0 is the EPL group, and then what happened straight after? They just went 6-0 at blast groups, and that's not like, as much as you take that for like a sign of great form, like history doesn't really speak in favor of G2 in that sense. So I just have this feeling where they could just like flop. Like, everybody has so much expectations on G2 at the moment, and kind of the same thing happened back at EPL. Everybody was like, oh, they 2-0'd FaZe, and they 2-0'd everybody, and then obviously, nothing really happened after that, and they failed to qualify for the major, just like a complete flop. But I mean, obviously, considering their form, they won World Final. They did really well at the Blast group, so they definitely should be one of the favorites. And they actually have a group that seems to be fitting them now, because they have FaZe, Liquid, and Navi, and they've done well against FaZe recently, kind of consistently. They just beat Navi twice, and Navi are having these struggles. So like, it seems like everything's converging into a really solid tournament for G2 again.
And Nico is fucking insane.
And Nico,
yeah, beast mode right now. Some of the rounds he's having are fucking brutal. Like, it's ridiculous out there. Yeah, and I think the thing is, if you get Nico and Monacy playing well, and then you only need one of Hunter or JKS to step up, or both to be just at their level, and then you're pretty set, right? So I think that G2 obviously an exciting prospect. Who else can we talk about here? Do we want to talk about Astralis? Right, like initial signs. Not great for Buzz.
No. Buzz is the lowest
tournament.
It's his lowest rated player of Blast with 0.66. I didn't see people talking about this.
I'm going to give him this tournament though. He can have it. It's a freebie.
Yeah,
I was same as NPL last time.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it, because when I went through the stats, because I didn't see anyone like tweeting about it or anything. But I guess everyone's just like, let's give him a pass.
Everyone's being nice.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't expect it.
But we should be a little bit more like, this should be expected. Obviously, if someone comes in and
but the forums are still going to be like Lumao, Buzz, LOL, Astralis, and stuff like that. Right. I didn't see it, so I was surprised.
That's true.
Did they had a good map, right? Versus
he had an ace on a pistol round.
Yeah, versus when they won versus Heroic. I mean, sure, Device carried that match, but I think he played decent. Yeah,
that's a good one.
I think for me, the thing that stands out with Astralis was just seeing Device on Inferno up to, well, I wouldn't even say his old tricks. Like, it felt like a bit more aggressive Device. It felt like Device playing Face It, just like picking middle on Inferno with the AWP and being such like a jarring force. He wasn't giving any like room for free to Heroic on their T side. He was just like posturing aggressive or semi-aggressive with the AWP. When he got pushed and they had pistols, he brings out a Tech 9 that he's scavenged. He's fucking dugging down 4 players and stuff. It was just good. For me, that's my biggest takeaway. Seeing Device back in the server on LAN with this team, playing well, and that kind of breeds a little bit of hope that if he can perform at a very high level and Blame can, and then we see what Buzz can become, there can be a conversation for the future. But right now, it's a long journey back for Astralis, right? They're not in Katowice at all. We won't get to see them again, at least in the coming weeks. So for them, it's a development period, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And I'm sure that
they
they're
have to go through the qualifiers too. I just realized.
Yeah.
So that's the next time we'll see them in like about 2 weeks. For the, I mean, they still have the knockout stage to play in Blast, but I mean after that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have Liquid. I mean, I just have a feeling that Liquid will just manage to get over the line and win any of these next upcoming tournaments.
Really?
It feels like,
Okay.
yeah, it feels like they have something, but it's just not clicking just yet.
there's
And I
been a
think
bit
this
of
new map
OC
will-
slander. What do you feel about that threat? There's been a bit. OC's been under the pump. He's not really. There's people saying he's not contributing with the AWP. He did do an interview saying it was harder than he thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly the weakest link in that lineup right now, which is like fair enough. If you look at their lineup, they have a bunch of really strong players. I mean, what spot did Naf get in the top 20? It was
He
14.
No.
But he's not
No,
the
that
worst.
was previous year. Naf didn't make
just
it this year.
outside.
Oh, he did it. Yeah,
He was
didn't
right
make
outside. It was 20,
Just outside, yeah.
3 something. Yeah.
But I actually think for that team to like really shine, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but there was a while where Naf was up there almost top 5. I think it was like 6th and 7th best player in the world. Like if they can get him back to that level, and obviously Yekindar is probably the I'm gonna make up a new rating here. It's highest impact per HLTV rating.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
So for every decimal that Yekindar has, it's just like worth 3 more than another player in the rating because he just has such a big impact when he plays. I don't know. It just feels like they're so close, and they look really strong on Anubis, right? They played.
They beat OG on it, but I think they also lost to OG on it, didn't they?
They played. No, not them. They didn't play.
I think
Complexity.
I think they played. Didn't Liquid
Oh
play?
yeah, they did play Complexity on Anubis, but I mean,
On
it's
Anubis?
Complexity.
Yeah, it's complexity.
Yeah, it was 16-2.
I thought we were talking about Ancient. Sorry,
No,
no,
Anubis.
it's this shit's not even entering right now.
You're really
It's
opposite today.
frazzled as
To
fuck.
be honest, it happens to me with Ancient and Anubis. Like I saw some update to Ancient. I'm like, what are they talking about? They didn't change anything. And that Ancient.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
It happens.
Good update. Really good
Good
update.
The
The
latest
Ancient
one,
update.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Anubis
change
update.
spawns.
That one, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. Seems pretty intense. Do you want to talk about Katowice shortly, or are we?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to see which names that we can bring across into this conversation, right? So
Yeah.
the good thing we did Astralis because we
They're
can't
not
bring
there.
them across into the conversation. Yeah, let's chop and change a bit. Let's jump over and we can bring some of our thoughts across with us.
I
So
mean, we
kind
can
of it's
maybe like a way we can do it fast, at least for this playing stage, is just like go through the bracket and see which teams we think will make it through.
sure. Let me
Um,
just whack this towards Lucas.
I
just so he
mean,
can
Because
bring
it seems
this
like
up
a
for
fairly
everybody.
obvious conversation, like in a lot of these matches,
I
and
think-
things like that. But like we can just like quickly
I
run
wouldn't-
through some of these teams.
Let's not do like match by match.
No,
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 but
we can
let's
just
not
do like a run
We don't
through
have
these.
to do the
yeah.
whole bracket. Let's
So-
just talk
so
about
this-
the game.
these are
and then-
the-
Pick eight teams who will make it through, essentially.
These are the 16 teams. So it's Furia, Cloud9, Fnatic, OG, Spirit, and Big NIP. These are the top 8 ranked. And then you have Sprout, Evil Geniuses, Complexity, Pain, IHC, Greyhound, MIBR, and Permita.
Seems
so
like
I
a
think-
very obvious cutoff, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's like the top 8 makes sense to go through. And then you have like Sprout that may like do something, but they also kind of didn't really hit the ground running.
yeah, not
after
for
the
this
change.
year
with,
anyway.
with
Yeah.
Zillow, it hasn't been very good.
Yeah,
even at the lower
They
tier.
failed to qualify for EPL, which I think really stings for them. And then you have EG and Complexity. Like these 2 teams maybe do something, but I don't think from the rest that we can expect anyone to go through. Like
Right.
maybe some upsets, but I don't think anyone else should go through.
It's hard when we haven't seen a lot of these names play this year, right? Like we haven't seen Ents play, we haven't seen Cloud9 play, we haven't seen Spirit play, right? And these are some names that we know. We haven't seen Furia play, we haven't seen Fnatic play. These names are names who could be threats to teams that we're watching right now, and we're not going to know. I guess these are their warm-up games. You know, Cloud9, IHC. Okay, well they should be dispatching of that matchup. Ends against Pain. Well, maybe a little bit harder, but Ends should get that done, right? So for these names here, I don't think there's too many hiccups. You're right. Pointing out Sprout is one. What do we feel about like OG though, right? Because of their form in Blast, they've had some good looking maps, they've had some not so good looking maps. Like this development of this team, when is the point? And I guess Threat, you'd be the best for this with the younger players that you brought through. But Fiku and Neofrag are the two, who when you saw them in Sinners and then Fiku and Ego, you could see the promise, you could see the shine, you could see, what's there under the hood. How long should it take as a period of time for a transition of them coming and taking this step up before they get that consistently? Because Dexter, constant impact, constant aggression. He's always doing the same shit. He's always delivering, but it's the supporting cast that don't feel like they're quite there consistently.
Yeah, and what worries me even more in that lineup right now is since they brought Neofrag and Fiku in, is I think especially Neofrag, he's played like decent. I don't think he's been worse than he was when he played in Sinners, but it's actually how Flames has fallen off. Because at one point I thought that Flames was like the hottest rifler in Europe for a while, right?
Okay.
It was like the end of 2021. So I don't know if maybe it's a like combination that Flames still hasn't enough experience and they keep piling on players that's inexperienced. I probably think that is the case for this lineup because they do have the talent. And I think for Nexa to IGL this team is probably not the easiest task in the world, to be honest. Because if you like, even Dexter, I mean, he played in Spirit before this. They had one really good run in Antwerp. But if your lineup is where Dexter is the most experienced one, I think you're going to have some issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
What?
I was just looking through some stats and I was like looking through openings because of Neofrag, because I saw something about like him and Nexa changing some spots and like swapping positions. And so I was just checking that. I noticed this one, like I went to the bottom on T side openings and I went to notice this stat. I was like, oh, Glaive is like 0.05 opening kills per round versus 0.22 deaths per round. But then I looked further bottom and Buzz has like 30% opening kill attempts. And he only had one opening duel won against 14 lost.
Oh, damn.
He went 114 in opening duels.
That's a yikes for me, dog.
And like really, I think he's like one of the most involved in those two, like top 10 players involved in like opening duels on the T side. So, I mean, if you have a guy just dying like, every third round, let's say on his own, then of course you're going to have problems,
And if he's not the in-game leader, you got a couple more problems, mate. Sacrificial lambs.
I feel like Flames has like a lot of like T-side aggression rules that also fucks him up. I don't know if that was always the case. Maybe that wasn't the case that much in previous OG lineups, but he has a lot of these like very, just start running in on an execute roles where he just gets fucked, right? I mean, sometimes he gets a kill, but he's not really set up as the star as you would kind of maybe expect him to be. Especially on the T side, he's not, he's more Yakindar / Kerrigan than, I don't know, a Rops or a Elige now, I guess.
I've seen like some moments where they'll have like a really good pop flash for him in like a ramp or whatever on the CT side to clear. But, I guess it's difficult to consistently give resources to set up the entry frag. Like obviously you want to make the space, but maybe you don't always have that extra flash left over for the next corner. I don't know. It's a weird one. Like I remember when OG added Dexter. For me, the whole team at that point, I was like, okay, so I've seen all of these guys. They're all really plucky riflers. Nexa as well as a Roman Domain game leader, like getting in the fight. And they just felt like a really brawly team. And I know that you need to have a few more different levels to the way you approach Counter-Strike. It can't all just be fight, unless you're heroic, I guess. But I thought that they would, if the individuals are playing well, this is a team to be reckoned with, which is the case. It's just they're not getting enough output consistently, right? So,
did you read the article that came out today?
Hit me.
The one about like trading and stuff.
Oh, I was looking at that. Did that come? Yeah, I was having a look at that.
That's because you compared OG to heroic. If you can bring this up for a second, and just like based on this one stat, which is how much people are involved in trades. Like OG is the closest team to heroic, and they are like very much like separated from the whole pack. And with outsiders with outsiders on the other,
outsiders
on the other side, right? So it does seem like that's the direction, and sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. Like that's kind of how it works for OG, because they're not as I mean, they haven't been together as much as Heroic, and they don't have like the same level of cohesion and everything. So
they group up a lot as well. Like that's kind of like a part of it. That's kind of the difference between them and Heroic. And that's actually in the article as well. Where Heroic are much more balanced in like how they structure their rounds, while OG can just be like, let's just group up from spawn and do something.
Yeah, it's interesting to like these articles are really interesting to see. Like when you have these lovely graphics made with comparisons.
Amazing, man. Like he's drawing some of these links that I would never have thought of. About like defining players and roles and like really finding new ways, like coming with original ways to define all these things, and all of them like making a lot of sense. Like he's very good.
Yeah, it's good to have like people challenging the status quo with the way that we look at things, and especially if you have the data to be able to back it up, right? And at the end of the day, it all that there's a lot of different ways to look at these things. So it's good to have.
Just to mention in the article, you can go. There's a link to like Tableau, which is a website for like graphs and shit, so you can see all of the stats for the top 20 teams or something, and you can see all of the players and the player that is like least traded out of all. Do you want to guess?
Is it James?
No, he's second least.
Who is it?
It's Bymef. Someone asked this in the comments of the article, so I went to check it. I was like, yeah, it is.
I should have known that.
I hit you with a lot of can you guess this episode? Do you
I like
that?
the can you guess game.
What about Yakindar? I like how close is he to the pack?
He's actually very far. Like surprisingly very far.
I thought so as well, right? Because that's actually a bit more of the CIS style, where you would like take like smart gambles. I mean, the perfect example is like Yakindar would run out long on overpass, A long, and just take the space.
Yeah.
Because most of the rounds, the upper is not there. Right. And obviously there's no trade potential, but that's just that simple move. That's a very CIS thing to do. And I mean, you can see with outsiders, it's obviously very much the case.
Yeah,
this is really cool. It's very cool. It's so distinct between outsiders and heroic. As you said.
It was interesting also that like basically like there's like in that statistic, like 3 players that are similar in that, but you would never really put in the same conversation as Nico, Exile, and Yakindar. Like they all score basically in the same area in terms of how much they are traded, which is very low, and how much they trade, which is also very low, because they are so disconnected from the pack a lot of the time,
And I think the more we talk about this, is eventually we will reach a point where all of these roles, that is, like, obviously it's all made up. Like I've been part of the C scene. I made up a lot of the rules and like how you're supposed to think about this on this map. I mean, in 10 years, I definitely hope that we have something better. And we're slowly reaching this point, because the more and more you talk about being a lurker and an entry fragger, and especially like when you are on the desk, right, Chad?
Yes.
You reach a point where you almost have to like makes things up to make it fit the narrative almost, right? It's like, yeah, he's a lurker, that's why he did this, and it's like, yeah, but this doesn't make any sense. Yeah, let's forget about that. yeah.
Been there. We've all been there.
Yeah, that was also part of the award show, right? Like we kind of basically redefined some of the roles, because like a lot of the language that we've been using doesn't really fit anymore.
That's the thing, and it is going to constantly evolve, right? Because the game will as well, and the approaches to the game will also evolve. So, yeah, I imagine it's something that is endless. It's an infinite game here that we'll get to follow through on. Okay, so do we think that any of these names here? I'm going to list, and someone stop me if you don't think that a name that I'm reading out is a shoe-in to make it from the play-ins to the main event. All right, so Furia, Cloud9, Fnatic, OG, Spirit, Ents.
I'm gonna say stop there.
Okay, stop on Ents.
Yeah, I'm gonna say stop, because they have a lineup that I think they have underperformed. I still think they will make it through, but it's just a caveat with how good Sun Pius is. I would even say if Ents starts performing as a team, or if Sun Pius finds another team, he could definitely make it deep in the top 20 players of the year.
Oh, shit. All right.
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yeah, he actually was kind of like, he would have been in the conversation if he had a better sample size for sure, because statistically he was definitely up there, like in consideration, but just didn't play enough, essentially to to be a realistic candidate.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just look at, I mean, not to trash movie star writers, but after he left, things
They
haven't been
fell
looking
off
they're
the planet
struggling
for
for
sure, yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're riding something right now, and it's a rough ride. Let's maybe leave it at that for poor Movistar riders. Okay, so Striker, did you have anything to add about Ents, or are you just in agreement?
No, kind of in a similar boat. Also looking at the bracket, they're probably gonna, like, if they beat Pain, then they're probably gonna meet Cloud9, and then who knows who they meet on the bottom side there. But still, like, it's not the easiest side of the bracket either.
Okay, so let's continue forward here. Big. Do we think Big's going to make it? Are they?
They're gonna make it.
All right. NIP though. Now that with config, are they making it?
I think there's gonna be like a honeymoon thing as anyway. Like,
they're just gonna
config's
farm?
just gonna run and farm, and like somehow they're just gonna make it work, I feel.
All right. And then I guess this is where we get to the teams on the cusp a bit more, right? We mentioned Sprout; they definitely stand out. But EG versus Complexity. This isn't me bagging on them. Maybe they have a chance, maybe they don't, right? Like, it's so middle of the road with these guys. But out of Pain, IHC, Greyhound, MIBR, and Permitter, is there anybody there that's like, yeah, like these guys can grind out some wins? Like IHC with their style, you could make a conversation that maybe these guys, they know they're playing Cloud9 in the opening round, the poor bastards.
Yeah, they're going to be wrecked there,
But
unfortunately.
they play the most European style for a team that's from Asia.
Yeah, but they're playing against the team you shouldn't play that
That's
style.
true, actually.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
Fuck.
the one team you don't want to play that style against.
I mean, if
they're
anything,
going to be
then Pain,
destroyed.
I would maybe think about Pain, just because of kind of like in the past they've taken some big names, and they have like Ants in the first round, which is kind of, as far as meeting and come up against the favorites goes, it's not the hardest matchup, it's the best of one, and so that they're maybe going to have a chance there. So I think there's like some conversation where they might have a chance at least.
Yeah, out of the outsider teams, I'd say they are definitely. They've been together for 5 months. They didn't make any changes like most of the Brazilian teams. Like MIBR, I think definitely has been losing steam, so I don't really have any faith in them to do. Where's my microphone going?
No, it's all good.
All right, it looks cool, man.
It's just like left. It just blocked my face.
It's going up again. Look at the hydraulics.
Wee.
Lucas is in there pulling a fucking cable or something.
Yeah.
All right, let's zoom forward. Unless anybody has anything else they want to say about the playing teams. Okay, so we're going to talk broader. Broader strokes right now. Maybe I'm having a stroke. This would fucking explain a lot on how the tournament is going to come to its conclusion here for Katowice. Now, let me just tell you who's already waiting in Group A. We've got Liquid, Navi, G2, and FaZe. That's fucking.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, when I saw that, I only saw that today, I think, or yesterday or something. That those 4 teams are in the same group. Like, if we saw this, let's say, half a year ago, maybe we would be like, what the fuck? How are 3 of these 4 teams together in the same group? I know things have changed a little bit. I mean, Navi are obviously not the team that we saw like half a year ago. And FaZe are also kind of not in the same exact conversation, but it seems like a much stronger group.
Oh, for sure.
Subjectively, for sure.
We compared that with the with Group B, and I'll just read that out for everybody playing at home. It's Heroic, Mouse, Vitality, and Outsiders, and 2 of these names we haven't even seen play this side of the year yet, which is Mouse and Outsiders. So there's some unknown quantities in Group B where I feel like we know a bit more of what we're going to get from Group A. Now, the teams from the play-ins, they'll obviously get put into these groups respectively, but let's focus in on the teams that we think are going to get through the play-ins, and of course these teams who are already here. And I want us to narrow this down, right? Because we could sit here fluffing about, going, oh, well, Mouse, maybe an Outsiders. Now that we've got Chiron, like a lot of this stuff, right? We're making some fucking stabs in the dark here, boys, on who we think is going to go deep in this tournament, right? So I don't know if anybody wants to kick it off. I don't have a gut feeling here. I've been watching.
I said it earlier with G2. I think even though they are in the harder group, those teams they've actually done well against. I don't know about Liquid at the moment. I don't remember how they played against them, but the other Navi and FaZe, they've generally done well in the past few months against them.
I mean, they beat Liquid at Blast, didn't they?
Oh yeah, of course they did. I mean, they exchanged series there because they lost in the first game, and that was the whole Nico quote about like next time we meet them, we're gonna smash them or something, and they did in the final. So yeah, fair enough.
I think that outside of the obvious ones like Navi, G2, and FaZe, the team, like if Outsiders. With Chiron. Yeah,
I think it's Chiron.
Chiron. Yeah, if they make it through the groups, then we're gonna make a very deep run. So it's very hard to predict. But if they play really well and the Chiron, like if he is a big upgrade from Norbert, I mean, they could win the tournament. That's what I'm going to throw out there. That they would be the. I don't even know if I would call them dark horse. They're sort of in the middle ground between
Right.
dark horse and like super S tier team. But I think Outsider's going to make a deep run.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad shout at all. Obviously for the kid, it's going to be, into the deep end. But
Big
I guess
jump, yeah.
with the way that they play Counter-Strike and every round just being so measured and just more than happy to save, maybe he won't. I don't know. Maybe the play style will help him acclimatize a little bit if he's even comfortable with that. So we're making some broad assumptions here. We obviously have Cloud9 with Buster on debut as well. So we need to see if there's any change in the play style of Cloud9. But where with Shiro and Axe are left off last year, it's going to be interesting to see if they can continue that form, because we know with those two being so strong and how deep they were in the top 20 as far as 2022 goes, you're thinking what more do these two players have to do? And is Buster going to bring that difference? Is Nafany going to change the way they approach the game? So Cloud9's a massive unknown. I don't know. To do my job right now, I don't have enough information to pick who's going to win.
Pick one team. It's going to be Cloud9. Let's go. End the zone. Roll the bumper.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Nah.
You want me to pick it? And I can be like, why are you sleeping on Cloud9?
No, I don't believe Cloud9.
No? You don't want to rehash it?
All right. I don't want the... That was before Katowice, right? I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
Cloud9 Outsiders in the grand final will be the longest grand final ever.
Best of five.
Best of five. Yeah. Everyone is completely spread out on the map like nothing.
I mean, I'm gonna go the other way and say Navi's not gonna make the playoffs. I know it's not a big. I don't think that's really honestly like a hot take.
I think that's very realistic, actually. Yeah.
Because like looking at the group, like those other three teams are just favored over them at this point. G2, FaZe, and Liquid. FaZe, we can kind of like wonder about like how much they've prepared. They've actually played with Rain, even though they played Blast with obviously with a stand-in, and we're supposed to have a different stand-in. So there was some preparation, but obviously expecting a kid and all of that, like it's gonna throw a wrench in things. Who knows how much he's gonna be able to prepare with them now before they go to Katowice and all of that stuff. So maybe there's a conversation there that they're not going to be in the best form, like as that five particularly. But like we know FaZe, they're going to be competitive, But Navi have just been very shaky.
Yeah, and it's hard to get MPL up to speed. Like they don't have a long break now, and I'm sure that the timeline for Navi is not. They would like to do well at these events. Everybody wants to do well, but I imagine their timeline is to be ready or as ready as they can be for the major, right? Like that's I guess how most teams would be scaling to be the most competitive they can be. So Threat reckons Outsiders with a deep run. Striker is under the impression that Navi won't make the playoffs. Prof thinks Cloud9 are going to win the whole thing, but seriously, you got a hot take here for us, Prof?
Not really. I think Cloud9 make playoffs. I think that's it. I don't think that's a hot take.
Only 16 playoffs, just so
what
everyone's aware.
What if they go into Group A?
I think they're like there. They're there. They're going to be there on the cusp. We'll see.
Man, I hope these groups don't end up super fucked, man. Like it could. I don't know how exactly it will work out, but it could work out where like Cloud9 is going to go into Group A or some shit.
I would like to have Cloud9 and Spirit in Group B, just to kind of start balancing things out a little bit.
Just to stack them with the CIS teams with Outsiders.
I'm excited to see more continued growth from Spirit, because I think that they're a team. I don't think they get slept on, but I think that they're a very good team and they're quite young, right? When you look at like Wonderful and Patsy, and I think we've started to lump a lot more praise in the direction of Chopper and the way that he's been running his team. So I think Spirit are a team that like, if they made the playoffs, it would be a surprise, but maybe it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Like they have that ability to break through in hard matches.
They're missing like a big result. Like they did have the playoffs of the major, the semifinal, but they didn't have like a win, right? They didn't reach a grand final, didn't really challenge for a title. So this would be the year, right? They did have like 2 Rookie of the Year nominees last year. So I think like that shows where this team is going essentially. And like Wonderful, honestly, like the 6 months that he played were fucking crazy for a player that just kind of arrived on the top level. So I believe they are going to have their moment. I don't know if Katowice is that, but for sure it's going to happen this year for Spirit.
Okay. Oh, that's my hot-ish take. Lukewarm take.
Lukewarm take. PSA
Oh, the live from Katowice, yeah.
Live show for Katowice. Just to put out the date, which is gonna be Wednesday,
8th of Feb, right?
8th of February. So that's like
Just over
days.
2 weeks. Just under 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 days before the playoffs start. So I don't know how many people are going to be able to be there that are not from Poland. But if in case they are, just mark or fly in a day early or whatever you want. It's going to be near Spodek, so it's going to be like a very familiar location, I guess, for people. And we'll put out the tickets. I'd say this weekend, probably on Sunday, like Sunday afternoon. I feel like that's a good time. I didn't manage to prepare that for the show. It would be nice to throw it live now, but it is what it is.
No, it is what it is. All right, gentlemen. I think we're coming to the logical conclusion here, but I know that there was a couple of questions that came through.
We need to ask one question.
That's Halvor's question, right? Was it Halvor's question?
Yeah, but we kind of asked that. What was your biggest regret from NIP? I think he was talking about the LNZ ZTR move. So I can ask another question. I think this one was good.
It's a promise. You said it was a promise.
Hollywood Chillin asks, question for Threat. Who was your favorite player to play with during the Lions, H2K, Lemon Dogs era that didn't switch over to CSGO?
Oh, that's a very tough one because I consider all of them close friends, right? Like Crystal is the one I played the most with, but it's the one I missed the most, probably Sneal, because he really started to shine. Like he was a bit unlucky that he had a weird career where he played a lot in like really early, like 2005. Like this is way back, right? And it was good, and then he was like, I'm going IRL, which was the thing people did back then, right? And then he just came back at the end, and he immediately made our team a lot better. Like even at the last 1.6 major, we came third. We beat SK with Forrest and Get Right, and he was just so good in that tournament.
Didn't they steal him right afterwards?
No, he was actually an SK. That was like 2009, way before that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he started playing CSGO, but he became a father, and things just didn't work out. And it's sort of the thing where I can think about what if he was one of those players. Like he was so talented, he could definitely been on the starting line of NIP in the beginning.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
He was just such a nerd, like even a bigger nerd than me in some ways.
In an alternate universe, maybe it happened. Maybe he stuck the landing.
New viewers, Google Sneal Famous or whatever. Is there a name of a frag movie from him?
If you just Google YouTube Sneal, you will have some highlight movies.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, for sure.
There's
a lot of promise in there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's just one clip here. I'm gonna.
If there's anything that we should send to Valve to get them to buff the burst fire, it should just be Sneal clips so they can appreciate how good it looks. Because it's like it's a high risk, high reward fucking play. Like you're locked up with those bursts. If you can just hit the heads, it's fucking sick. It's really good.
I think the only issue is that like people generally tend to like burst less these days. It's much more like either people are tapping or they're spraying. Like bursting is not so much of a thing. So that's the only thing that I feel like maybe it's just out of meta at this point.
Okay.
People just wouldn't do it.
I see what angle you're coming at this from. All right, boys. Well, we've been going for 2.5 hours. So I think we've hit our quota for this evening here. You know, all the people at home should be quite happy that we didn't talk about their teams. Threat, do you have anything you want to get off your chest before, any topics, anything else you want to set straight? We know you were talking about narratives, and is there anything else that you maybe you see something at the moment, you're like, people are talking about this team in this way, but that's not really the case?
Well, top of my mind, no. I mean, the narrative thing, it's good. I got it off my chest with the TSIs. It's been really bugging me, even though it's a small thing. Other than that, I mean, I'm still open for all suggestions in the esport world right now. I'm taking it easy right now. I think I want a few months to sort of figure out what I really want to do, but I'm open to suggestions. And if you want the best possible executes on Anubis, invoice me $1,000 and I will.
Maybe we can just like specialist coach for Anubis. We can get like a freelance coming in for a week.
I love playing a bit of Anubis. It's a lot of fun. It's a good map. I think that they've done a good job on it. Did you see that they lowered the grates for the lineups outside A? It's fucked. You got to just aim a bit. You got to spitball it a bit more now. They've changed a few things. That's cheap. Chad will buy that for his ESEA team. I missed the sign up, Halvor. I missed the sign up for ESEA season 18. Anyway,
don't you have some pull?
Yeah, come on, mate. It's not the Virtus Pro fucking invite situation all over again. All right, we can ramble on here for a long time. All right, so the Threat, he's out and about. If anybody wants his services, find him on the social medias. You can look him up. He's a pretty well-known guy. I'm sure we'll have his like Twitter or something in the YouTube after all this. We got the live show that Prof mentioned, 18th of February for Katowice. In Katowice, once upon a time, we had a party in that venue. Post the early
party.
Major. Maybe we do have another party. And we'll be back with another episode, I imagine, next week sometime when we can work it out throughout the schedule. I don't know how everything is going to pan out. It's been a little bit hit and miss with start to the year and so many matches and tournaments. But again, thank you for everybody for tuning in. It's been another episode of HLTV Confirmed, and we'll see you all next time.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Finally, I found what I was looking for. Now that my search is over, it's gonna be a tough choice. But fortunately, no need to choose. When you can just have them all. Buy and sell skins on BitSkins.com.
N1 Bet. Your bet, your game.